Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February 6, 2012 Currituck County Board of Commissioners meeting. Happy to see we have a lot of interested folks here today. I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the invocation. Reverend Ricky Bishop, Coinjop Baptist Church, if you'll come up and lead us in prayer, and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right here?
Right there.
Let's pray. Stand. Let's pray. Father, we take this time at the beginning of the meeting to simply acknowledge you. You're our hope, our strength, our guide, and so we acknowledge you. And then, Father, we acknowledge our need of you to guide us. You're all wise and you know all things, and we don't. So we need you. And we ask for you to be present. We ask for you to be pleased with our time together and guide us. We thank you as we gather here for blessing us as to be a part of this great county, and for the people that help to lead it. We thank you for them and ask God your blessings on them in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Join with me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we need to approve the agenda for this evening. I have two changes. Delete item B under public hearings. Public hearing and action on proposed appropriation and expenditure of county funds for an economic development project. And to the consent agenda, we need to add a resolution, which is to establish a salary for the Register of Deeds office.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I may, I think we need to look at that further, get a state average before we make such a resolution. I don't know that we've actually researched it enough, and I would like to put that off for another time.
Does anybody else have any question or discussion on that? Mr. Scanlon, would you like to address that?
Well, it's certainly the board's prerogative, but if the board does not take this particular item up tonight, then you will not be able to take it up. There's a statutory time frame. So I apologize for getting it to you now, but if this is something the board wants to consider, you would have to consider it tonight if you do. The salary that's in the resolution is the salary that we were suggested to look at Pasco County, which we did, and that represents the salary for Pasco County. But in respect to Commissioner Martin, if the board wanted to get further information and remove it from tonight, this would be the only time that you actually would have an opportunity to take this up.
Other discussion, questions?
I concur with Commissioner Martin on that.
To delay it until next year?
Yes, sir. Or the next meeting or whenever.
Well, the filing begins Monday.
It'll be delayed for 4 years.
not-
It'd be actually 4 years.
4 years.
Be delayed for 4 years.
What would be the salary basis at this time if this is not enacted?
I believe it's approximately $74,000.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest we pull it out of the consent agenda and discuss it when it comes at the appropriate time.
You want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's pull it out, and we'll move it to agenda item under new business, and that'll become item I. H, excuse me.
Where?
Item H under new business, second page.
H.
Okay, not being any other changes, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as modified with just the deletion of item B?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda. Next is public comment period. I have 3 persons signed up for public comment period today. This is a time when any citizen can come forward and address the Board of Commissioners with any items of concern to you, or express an opinion, or talk about topics of interest. And the first person I have signed up is Ms. Barbara Snowden, who wants to talk to us about the Civil War. And I know you weren't there. I know you must have studied this.
I was not there. My name is Barbara Snowden, and I live at 154 Courthouse Road. I received a query from the chamber, to be honest, saying that one of the commissioners, and I do not know which one of you, asked the question what Currituck County was planning to do for the Civil War. Well, I can't answer for the county because y'all have to make your own plans, but I decided that since I had gotten that question, it might be a good time to tell you some of the things that are going on for celebration of the sesquicentennial of the Civil War here in the county. The majority of them have been planned by the Historical Society, but they are open to the public, and we would love to have people join us. The first thing is a series of lectures. We have had 2 lectures already, one from Chris Meekins, who wrote the book on the Battle of Elizabeth City, which included what happened in Currituck, a speaker on the Battle of Plymouth, and then Monday night, a week from tonight, Alex Leary will be speaking on the Battle of South Mills. The Battle of South Mills is the closest battle that happened to us. Anyone who would like to come, it is at 7 o'clock at the library in Barco. We will continue this series with another speaker in April. This gentleman, his name is Chris Fonville. He is a professor at UNC Wilmington, but his connection to Currituck is he did his dissertation on the Civil War, and he wrote it while he was living at Bells Island. He found that being on campus was too distracting, so he spent 2.5 years living on Bells Island actually writing the dissertation. So I'm hoping that some of the people in the county got to know Chris while he was here and would like to see him and hear his research. We'll continue with the Battle of the Maple Leaf in September, and then I'm not sure what we're going to do in 2014 and 2015. We haven't planned that far. In addition to that, there are a couple other things that are going on. One of the things we will need the county's help with. We intend to re-invade Currituck County. As you know, during the Civil War, this courthouse was the site of Union troops actually occupying the courthouse, taking some of our records back to Ohio and Pennsylvania and some other places that we have been lucky to get those records back. And the Historical Society is planning to invite a Union group of reenactors here to occupy this site again. We'll do it on a Friday, so it we'll not try to actually have them here for the whole month that they were here, but we think this would be a good way to let people see what was going on during the Civil War, and students visit the camps and learn a little bit about the Civil War. Finally, we're planning to have a tour of the antebellum sites here in the county. There are a lot of antebellum sites, which means buildings or sites of things that were built prior to the Civil War. And we're planning to have just a general tour of those sites for anybody who would like to take part in that. Finally, a couple other things that are going on and continue to go on. As you know, there are 7 Civil War trails here in Currituck County. There is also a map that the Department of Tourism put out that shows all 7 sites. I received a phone call from the library the other day, and the librarian said, okay, where is this site? She had a group of Civil War people who were actually following the trail, and she did not know where the marker was in Shawboro, so I had to tell her how to get to that particular site. But there are 7 sites. We worked very hard to make sure that there's a site in every part of the county. There's one in Moyock, there's one at Knott's Island, there's one in Shawboro, there's one in Maple, there's one in the lower end of the county, and if we can get the research done, there will hopefully be 2 more, one in the Corolla area and possibly another one here on the mainland. Those are the things that we have in planned have talked about the sesquicentennial. We will end it in 2015 with the North Carolina Maritime History Conference will be held in Corolla. This is a group of about between 75 and 100 historians who meet all over up and down the coast. The meeting is usually in October. The last one was in Wilmington, and I'm very pleased to say that they accepted our proposal to come to Corolla in 2015. So that's what we have going. I would love to see the commissioners appoint a committee and let the committee and the county come up with some other ideas, some other events that y'all would like to sponsor. That would be a wonderful thing. And before I give up the microphone, I hope somebody has a talk on me to see if I'm over my 3 minutes. If you're into the Civil War, today, this weekend, the Museum of the Albemarle is opening their Civil War exhibit. It will have lots of things from Currituck in it. I have not seen the exhibit, so I can't tell you exactly which ones, but I do know that a list of the soldiers from Shawboro, the original roster list, is part of their things that they have at the museum. The actual doctor's kit that Dr. Marchant used during the Civil War is there. And so I'm sure there will be a lot of things that have connections to Currituck County. I'm looking forward to the fact that they're going to show for the first time the carriage of the Black Warrior. This is the 150th anniversary of, and we can't call it a celebration, but a commemoration of the fall of Elizabeth City and the sinking of the Mosquito fleet in the bay. And this will be the first time that this gun carriage, which they East Carolina's archaeologists and the state archaeologists brought up a number of years ago, and they've just finished the conservation. So it will be going on display this weekend. If you don't have anything to do Saturday, you can go to Elizabeth City. They will have naval guns being fired from the period. They will have reenactors. They will have speakers. They will have lots of exhibits going on besides the actual opening of the Civil War exhibit. And I'm going to have to put a plug in for Currituck County. The opening of the exhibit, you walk into an antebellum house, and that antebellum house was restored by one of the restorationists from Tulls Creek, Russ Steele. He's the one who actually did that restoration for the opening of the exhibit, and it's a very I've seen that, so that's a very spectacular part of the exhibit. So I put the ball back in your court. Y'all
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yes.
sorry, ma'am.
Go ahead.
As a descendant of 3 members of the Army in Northern Virginia
Yes, sir.
and was in reenacting for 10 years, I respectfully request when they invade the courthouse that we have a fair and balanced some members in reenacting in the gray uniform. And if you need, I have a nice list, so I respectfully request that.
I had planned to let the Union occupy since they're the ones who actually occupied us.
Well, just a suggestion.
We can put some Confederate soldiers over to the side. I'm not going to let them burn down the house again, but
Butch, did y'all use live ammo?
Not yet.
I believe in true history, but I draw a line at that particular thing. But you're right. We will. I'm working with some Confederate reenactors, and they are getting me the Union reenactors. Union reenactors are pretty hard to get in the South, to be honest.
It's called the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
I seem to recall from one of the lectures at the Historical Society when the gentleman instructed us that the state of North Carolina, took 3 votes to decide which side they were going to be on.
It did.
And then after that, it depended on what day it was of the week when you asked them, and often where you were and who they were talking to at the time. So
That is true. It took North Carolina did not vote to succeed when the other states did. We voted a little bit later when Lincoln called for the troops was when we decided to go out. And the interesting thing is a lot of the places around here, you will find that when you actually do research on the Civil War, we had a large number of Union people here in the area as well as Confederate. But you have to understand we were occupied, and that makes a lot of difference in your loyalties. Some counties, such as Bertie and Martin, when they did their research, they found that they had about 50-50 of Union and 50-50 of Confederate.
I think they're still fighting along those lines today, aren't they?
Sir, I will honestly not comment on that. But
Thank
I
you
would
very
like to remind everybody, Monday night, anybody who would like to come and hear Alex Leary, he is an interesting speaker. You will come away learning a lot and having an enjoyable evening. And we would love to have anybody who is interested in the Civil War. And I look forward to seeing what y'all decide to do for the sesquicentennial of the Civil War.
I think we'll defer to the history teacher amongst the Board of Commissioners here for suggestions along that line. Any other suggestions? All in favor of that? Okay.
I do concur, but I will check with the official historian of Currituck County as to what she would like to propose.
I understand. Thank you, Ms. Snowden. Appreciate that presentation. Ms. Jill Ross signed up next to speak. Name and address for the record, please.
Jill Rolfus, 129 Deer Run. Hi, I'm Jill. Good evening. As Thomas Jefferson once said, all tyranny needs is to gain foothold of, As Thomas Jefferson once said, all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. In the spirit of Thomas Jefferson's quote, I'm concerned about the current UDO rewrite that has connections to Agenda 21. To better explain the concern, I'm going to read a resolution unanimously passed on January 13th, 2012 by the Republican National Committee. Although I am reading what has been approved by the Republican National Committee, there is a current movement in the Democratic National Committee for a similar document. Resolution exposing United Nations Agenda 21. Whereas the United Nations Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of extreme environmentalism, social engineering, and global political control that was initiated at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED, held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in 1992. And whereas the United Nations Agenda 21 is being covertly pushed into local communities throughout the United States of America through the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, through local sustainable development policies such as Smart Growth, Wildlands Project, Resilient Cities, Regional Visioning Products, and other green or alternative projects. And whereas the United Nations Agenda 21 plan of radical so-called sustainable development views the American way of life of private property ownership, single-family homes, private car ownership, and individual travel choices and privately owned farms, all is destructive to the environment. And whereas, according to the United Nations Agenda 21 policy, social justice is described as the right and opportunity of all people to benefit equally from the resources afforded us by society and the environment, which would be accomplished by socialist, communist redistribution of wealth. And whereas, according to the United Nations Agenda 21 policy, national sovereignty is deemed a social injustice. Now, therefore, be resolved. The Republican National Committee recognizes the destruction and insidious nature of the United Nations Agenda 21 and hereby exposes to the public and the public policymakers the dangerous intent of the plan. And therefore, be it further resolved that the U.S. government and no state or local government is legally bound by the United Nations Agenda 21 treaty, in that it has never been endorsed by the U.S. Senate, and therefore be it further resolved that the federal and state and local governments across the country be well informed of the underlying harmful implications of implementation of United Nations Agenda 21 destructive strategies for sustainable development. And we hereby endorse rejection of its radical policies and rejection of any grant monies attached to it. And therefore be it further resolved that upon the approval of this resolution, the Republican National Committee shall deliver a copy of this resolution to each of the Republican members of Congress, all Republican candidates for Congress, all Republican candidates for president who qualify for RNC sanctioned debates, and to each Republican state and territorial party office, and recommend for adoption into the Republican Party platform of the 2012 convention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. And next signed up is Mr. Ross.
My name is Ben Rolfus, address 129 Deer Run. Good evening, commissioners, clerk, county attorney, county manager, county director of planning, and anyone that I may have forgotten. I hope you ladies and gentlemen are well tonight. In regards to the UDO and the previous speaker's comments, I want it to be known that in other counties in North Carolina, the United Nations Agenda 21 is being issued in by means of vision statements, sustainable development policies, okay, as found in the UDO rewrite draft. So the UDO rewrite draft in its current form is unacceptable. Since I only have limited time here tonight, I wanted to make known to the board that we will be providing additional information and documentation in the future for a later date. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Office.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any specifics? I mean, I honestly don't follow where you're coming from, and I will ask Mr. Woody to respond. Do you have any specifics as to what we have done in the UDO rewrite that...
There's language in the UDO rewrite that talks of sustainable development, green, eco, sustainable living, and these are key words that the United Nations Agenda 21 uses. Any rational person in this room wants and desires for their future and their generations to come to have a sustainable environment, right?
Yes.
That's common sense. But the United Nations Agenda 21 takes our common sense and plays it against us and uses these nice, warm, fuzzy words such as green, ecology, sustainable living, sustainability for the future. And for these words, they, through Clarion and Associates, which was contracted as the consulting firm for this UDO. The history behind Clarion Associates is of their underlying objections or objectives are more than what we're being told, okay? They are not being forthright in what they are suggesting and encouraging through the UDO rewrite. The UDO rewrite is just one aspect or tool they use to grab hold to local governments to encompass this agenda. I encourage everyone here tonight, the board, the county government, the folks behind me, to Google the United Nations Agenda 21. They have a over 200-page document that states what Ms. Rolfus just told you guys about. Okay? So the specificness is through Clarion and Associates, the consulting firm that helped with the UDO. They're sneaky. They'll do anything and everything they can to grab hold to a city or county government to initiate this United Nations Agenda 21. Okay, I know it sounds radical, but most of you haven't read it, right? Okay, most of you haven't read it, not familiar with United Nations Agenda 21. But if you're concerned about the future of this county, and I believe in my heart that you are, we all have difference of opinion on political. This is a bipartisan nature. This is the future of our country, and it starts here locally. So, sir, Mr. Eilert, if they grab hold to our county through grants and other mandates, they can force, their ultimate goal is to eliminate private property. Do you want your children to grow up to where they cannot own their own home or control the well water they have?
Of course not.
Of course not. So it sounds drastic, but if we look at what's being passed in our U.S. Congress, then, you got to say, you know what, maybe we should wake up a little bit. So I hope that answered your questions a little bit. We have all the documentation you need, and we're going to provide that to everyone in the room tonight, if you like.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Does anyone else wish to address the Board of Commissioners in public comment period? Hearing no one, let's move on to the agenda, then public hearings. Item A, public hearing and action on proposed amendment to Section 9-1 of the Code of Ordinances to allow as an exception to the ordinance prohibiting discharge of firearms, quotes, turkey shoots held as fundraisers, but by not-for-profit corporations, I expect that's supposed to say. Turkey shoots held as fundraisers by not-for-profit organizations. And who's going to lead the discussion on that?
I'll present that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McCree.
Mr. Chairman, Board, this comes to you and arises out of a presentation by members of the Currituck American Legion at your last meeting, where they presented to you their concern that due to the language contained in Section 9-1 of the Code of Ordinances, which regulates the discharge of firearms, they were unable now to lawfully hold turkey shoots as a fundraising event at the American Legion there in Currituck. At the direction of the board, we then advertised for public hearing tonight, which is important to note. A public hearing is not required for this ordinance, but the board wanted to hear from the public with regard to its comments relative to this ordinance that now is proposed to you to allow for turkey shoots by nonprofit entities within the county. I'll refer you to page 6 of your agenda, and beginning on line 53 of that page, creates an exception to the ordinance prohibiting the discharge of firearms within a certain distance of occupied residences by allowing for a turkey shoot, which is defined later on in the proposed language. That is sponsored and conducted by a not-for-profit organization. The turkey shoot cannot take place, or there can be no occupied house, building, or roadway in use behind a target in the line of fire within a distance of 300 yards from the target. Only shotguns can be used during the turkey shoot with shot size number 8 or less. No alcohol consumed on the premises of the turkey shoot while the shoot is in progress. No persons having the odor of alcohol are participating in the turkey shoot. The turkey shoot events would be limited between the hours of 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. on Fridays or Saturdays. And the property where the turkey shoot is located is fenced, posted, or otherwise restricted, so that access is controlled to ensure safety at the site in the event. And lastly, a backstop is located behind the target to stop all projectiles shot from the firing line to the target. Then, as I mentioned a moment ago, the definition of turkey shoot is defined as a shooting match or contest in which powder-burning shotguns are used and prizes awarded for marksmanship. So that is the proposed language for you. You certainly may add or remove language from this ordinance to suit what you believe to be the county's needs following the comments from the public. I'll be glad to answer any questions from the board.
Gentlemen?
I'd like to ask a couple. How is this proposed language different than what used to go on? And I guess what triggered the event that the turkey shoot was deemed illegal, and what language is different now than what was before?
Well, it's important to note, first of all, that the ordinance prohibits the discharge of firearms, and I'll go ahead and read the section, within 100 yards of any regularly occupied residence without written permission of the occupant or owner of the residence. But what I think causes particular problems with regard to Coinjock American Legion being able to continue with its turkey shoot firing at a target is paragraph 9-1D of the ordinance, which makes it unlawful to discharge a firearm into any target which has a substantial backdrop within 100 yards of any subdivision with or without permission. But it is lawful, it's kind of awkwardly written, but it's lawful to discharge a firearm which has a substantial backdrop so long as you're able to get permission from regular occupants of a residence within 300 yards of that firing location. And so my understanding of what was represented to you is American Legion post at Coinjock is unable to meet the distance requirements as set forth in our ordinance as currently established. And therefore, their shooting events at targets would be deemed unlawful.
Again, what triggered the event that we're discussing this tonight?
My understanding is that there has been perhaps other nonprofit groups that have leased or been allowed to utilize the American Legion post property in Coinjock, and there may have been one event, I think that it was discussed with us on the staff level, at which it caused a disturbance within the community such that citizens became concerned about that particular activity on that particular occasion.
Which caused law enforcement to get involved?
Yes, law enforcement was, as I understand it, called on that occasion and made a determination. I believe the citation was for a noise ordinance violation on that occasion, but that did, of course, cause or revealed that this provision of the Code of Ordinances relative to the discharge of firearms was also something that would prohibit the legal shooting of targets in these turkey shoot events.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions? I have a few. Why the distinction for not-for-profits? What's the difference between somebody shooting a shotgun for profit and not for profit under these circumstances?
Well, I think the thinking there is, first of all, the issue that was presented to you was not-for-profit group wanting to continue to be able to have fundraising events of this nature. I understand that there really probably is practically no distinction between a for-profit or not-for-profit group discharging firearms at this type of event. I think we find, at least in a survey I did of ordinances from around the country and even in North Carolina, similar to this ordinance proposed before you tonight, allow for turkey shoots within close proximity to occupied residences by not-for-profit groups for some reason. I don't think there's anything magical about that language, but that was what I concluded would be proposed to you in a draft at this time in any event.
Okay, well, I guess my point really was I don't understand that a not-for-profit shotgun would be any less dangerous than a for-profit shotgun in proximity to residential property.
So, certainly not. I think it's coming to you from the context or point of view that, again, these types of events are normally the type of events that are sponsored by not-for-profit groups for fundraising.
Okay, and the ordinance essentially, as it was stated, that if you have a backdrop at 100 yards clearance and could get permission, you're okay.
That's correct.
What kind of distance are we talking about in this particular circumstance between where the shooting is taking place and the residences?
I do not know, Mr. Chairman. Again, this would apply countywide, but I don't know the specific location, the dimensions that are necessary for their event.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of clarification. I think from what I read into the existing law, it says 100 yards from any subdivision with or without permission. However, it should be unlawful to discharge any rifle, handgun, shotgun, or other firearms in any target which has a substantial backdrop, so long as the said discharge is 300 yards away from any regular occupied residence, except without permission from the regular occupied occupant and owner of such residence. So 100 yards is the standard for subdivision, and I mean, as I read it,
Yes,
Mr. McCree,
that's
am I
fine.
correct?
That's
in assuming
correct.
Okay, and I understand.
And 300 yards in a non-subdivision area.
Okay. Well, I see the other restrictions there too. One of the ones that I was talking or thinking about here again with the turkey shoot event, unless they have lighted ranges. And here again, I'm just talking from a safety standpoint. I mean, I've been through NRA training. I like to shoot, and I'm sure many of you in the audience do. I don't think anybody's got any business shooting in the dark. You know, so the hours defined may not be as appropriate as perhaps a certain starting time and the end of daylight, depending on when that occurs at any particular time of year.
I have one more comment, or not a comment, but a question for Mr. McCree. Were you here when this ordinance was originally, in 2007, when this ordinance was written?
No, I was not.
Okay. Mr. Scanlon, do you recall the circumstances surrounding this ordinance when it come before the board in 2007?
I do not.
Mr. Etheridge, do you? I think you were on the board then.
This ordinance was just amended in 2007. I think the ordinance existed in its body for all intents and purposes. Goes back to, what, 1995, 96?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
What-
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say what originally triggered this was there was some
Hunting issues?
hunting issues too close to schools.
Yeah.
And I believe Knapp was the
Knapp
one
was
in
the school.
particular.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't the hunters, it was somebody riding down the road and jumped out of their car, saw a deer, jumped out of the car and just fired
Right.
willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And you can do nothing to protect against that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Well, I'm just kind of surprised. I don't find that would be necessary because people hit them with a Chevrolet going down the road all the time. I see them lying all along the road.
He was driving a Ford.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Then. I'm sorry, Mr. Patrick. Go ahead.
That's okay. Mr. McCree, I'm reading in here somewhere that says you're supposed to have a fence around the range. Did I see that in there?
That's correct. That would be line 66 on page 6 of your agenda.
Now, I'm assuming that means in around the area, the targeted area, you've got to have a fence so a person doesn't cut through. Is that right?
Yes, so access to the site is controlled.
Okay. I just want to make, I know I saw it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I know we have the person proposing the amendment to the ordinance here today, so let's lead off and hear from that side, and then we've got some folks signed up.
Can I ask one question?
Certainly, sir.
Would this area of Coinjock be considered a subdivision?
I think I would have to look at. I want to look at the definition of subdivision in the UDO. It certainly is probably subdivided for residential purposes. I think I probably would conclude. Well, I'd like to look at the definition of subdivision.
Mr. Woody, you got an opinion?
I think our UDO defines subdivision as just division of a division of land into two or more tracts.
So it would. Thank you.
All right. The applicant, as it were, if you'd like to
Yes, sir.
present your argument for
My name
this.
is John Jasinski. I'm the commander of American Legion Post. I live at 168 Young Road, Coinjock. On that yardage, our yards is 176 yards is what it is from the establishment across the road to where we shoot at. So that's why it's an issue now because it's 300 yards.
How about the establishment next door?
The Sneeds?
Well, there's a house next door.
Yeah, we own it. We own one, and the other one is occupied by the Sneed family. It's not an issue with them. I don't know what other questions you had over here. I reviewed everything you had on here to address. But this was originally, why this was brought up, we had a turkey shoot on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Like I said before, we've been doing this for 40 years. In April will be 40 years. American Legion had turkey shoots pretty much every Saturday. We had some on Sundays before, and we even had a night shoot. We have lights out there for night shoots. And that's what this whole issue is about, is because we had a shoot on a Sunday. And it started out as was a noise ordinance, and now it's turned into other things. So Any questions I can
question,
ask you other?
Yeah, I'm going to run down the list of stipulations on here and ask some questions, but Mr. Patrick, go ahead.
The turkey shoot on Sunday, was that your event or somebody else's event?
We hosted it for another organization, for another motorcycle club.
Okay. Was it just
Nonprofit.
was it random shooting or was it a turkey shoot?
It's a turkey shoot, sir.
Okay.
We took the officers down there. He went down and checked, seen the prizes, and when he told me that if he had to come back, he asked me if I was going to shut it down, and I told him no. They bought all them meats and stuff, and they, the people.
Was there alcohol out in the building?
Yes, sir. We have on-premises drinking license.
Does that on-premises drinking license carry over to the shooting shed outside?
Yes, sir. It's all our property.
Okay, so when it says here, no alcohol is consumed on the premises
Right,
of the turkey
I've seen that
shoot.
on this. Right, but we also understand, I know this is the new agenda, but what we were doing is we sell beer down there, but the people that shoot know that it's against the law to consume alcohol and discharge a firearm. We already know that law. So
you're saying the people drinking beer were not taking part in shooting a gun?
they're not supposed to be.
That's not the question.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'd sit there and watch everybody.
Well, I learned a long time ago that guns and alcohol don't mix.
Well, I understand that.
Okay.
But again, like I say, we've been doing this 40 years and never had one incident, so I'm going to fall back on that. Don't make it right.
Don't take but one.
Don't make it right. I know. But no, I
got another
no
question.
problem.
I got another question.
I have no problem, Mr. Petrie, with doing away with alcohol down there. But on premises, we own 6 acres there.
Okay, I'm just saying, out in your shed,
Right,
I've ridden by there.
right, okay.
All right, and let me say this before. I've been involved in your organization. You do a lot for the Lower Currituck Food Pantry.
Yes, we do.
You've done a lot, okay? My next question is this. When a person called me, and I rode by there to listen, just said, it was a neighbor, just go listen. Typically, a turkey shoot, I think you got 10 shooters, something like that? 16? Okay.
16
but typically, it's, as they say in the military, fire by foul, which is tunk, 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 like this, you fire.
No.
When I was out there, you'd hear one shot, then you'd hear, wait
Right.
2 or 3 minutes, then another shot. So it didn't sound like a turkey shoot to me. I can't say because I wasn't there. But the part about the fence and the alcohol and Sunday shootings, and I think for the 40 years you had a turkey shoot, has it always been on a Saturday only?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you didn't get any complaints?
No.
It was when the Sunday started.
Right.
Okay, my next question is this. Have you gone to any of your neighbors where it says right here permission of any of the neighbors? Have you gone to try to get them to say, give me another chance?
Yes.
And what was their response?
No. My adjutant had made the phone calls to the Green family, and I asked them about giving us written permission, and they declined.
The people that have called me, and I've had 6 in close proximity.
Yeah, I know they tag team us. They all got together.
I know, but I'm saying the people generally said they don't have a problem with Saturday from 12 to 3.
Right.
It was
fine.
the Sunday?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm just telling you what I heard. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Idle.
again, as he said, have nothing but respect for the Legion. The young man that his name is on the front of that place was a personal friend of mine. I was with him a day before he went to Vietnam and got killed. So I suspect with some of the activities that I have heard from the citizens in that community, he would not be happy with himself. It's more than a turkey shoot. And there's noise problems. I've heard it. Miss Green is my sister. I've heard it from her, certainly, and her husband, but I've also heard it from other neighbors in that community. Not just one, but from numerous. And you need to sit down with them, from my opinion, and with the neighborhood, not necessarily Mr. and Mrs. Green only, but the neighborhood, build some goodwill. And then I think you'll get what you want to get to.
Let me check
Please
something
do.
there.
Please
we
do.
put flyers on their porches, invite them to our functions, and try to get along with these people. They got my phone number. All these people complain had never called me. Not one time. They haven't called the post and said, hey, we got an issue with this. It was all done behind our back. They went right to the commissioners. They called every commissioner, and they called me. They went to the state commander, American Legion. That was a big embarrassment. Stuff like that. They never come and say, hey, Ski, we got a problem. We need to see what to do. And everything that we did, they said we did, The noise, the roundups, the membership roundups that we had permits. We put them on their door. Now they threaten us to have us arrested if we come put another one on our door. If I put a flyer on our door, they're going to have me arrested for trespassing and get us for littering. And that's what I'm dealing with now.
I understand there's always two
How
sides
can you
to every
talk to
story.
people who's going to do that to you?
Well, I just think there's maybe some ways to make that happen anyhow.
Yeah, but it works both sides.
I understand, totally understand that.
Okay.
Well, I understand, too, that I believe some of the apprehension they have is fear, really, of some sort of repercussion for raising the issue. You know, it's sort of like if you, you might be next door neighbors to a policeman and go and complain about being mistreated by another policeman, and then you wonder if you're going to get a ticket every time you leave home just because word gets around. And I'm not saying that that's what happens. You know, my dad was a member of American Legion, and I have a great deal of respect for American Legion. And I know you folks do a lot for charities in this area as well. It's a very honorable organization, and the people that are members of the American Legion have certainly paid their dues in order to be members. So we're not trying to pick on or do any kind of limitations, something like it. We just want to make sure that everybody's rights are protected with that. That's why we're looking at what to do to kind of defuse the situation before it gets worse.
Okay. Can I ask Mr. Petrie's other question he had about the turkey shoot? You said you never heard shot here, shot here.
Yeah.
We have 16 targets. We send 2 shooters at a time. We've divided 16 halves, 9, 1 through 9, and 9 through 16. We send 1 each to each end. Boom, boom, they shoot, they come in, then the next 2 go.
Okay.
We don't put everybody out there with loaded shotguns.
Okay.
You know, that's how safety conscious we are.
Can I
We
ask,
don't do that.
Can I ask him one more question?
Certainly.
Would you entertain, just throwing it out there, would you entertain if some of your neighbors and your commander sit down and try to negotiate something where they will sign off on it and stipulate some guidelines that you guys live by? Would you entertain that?
Sure. I'm open to anything. We're losing a lot of money here being shut down.
Well, like I said, you guys do a lot of good. I know for a fact.
We can't do nothing if we don't have
When
money.
Bob Kohler was there, you guys, when the food pantry called, you were there, ready and willing. Okay, so this is not about trying to vilify you guys. We're stuck in the middle here with an ordinance that we're trying to deal with and come up with a happy medium. And I just told Mr. Odlett and I'll ask the other board, is it wrong to say, can we table this and say, okay, Mr. Odlett with, up here and get some people together and put our feet under a table and see if we can reach a compromise that they'll sign off on, set some guidelines so these guys can go back to fundraising.
Well, before we put it off, we've got some folks here that want to speak.
Okay, I'm just
Let's
saying.
hear what they say, and
All right.
we may be able to talk it out here tonight and come up with stipulations everybody would agree
Okay,
to.
I'm sorry,
and act on it.
premature.
If that's okay.
And I still have that stuff in my car 'cause I'm toting around.
Don't go there.
It's outside the parking lot. Okay.
Okay. Well, I may call you back up again because
Okay,
I want to hear
sure.
from some of the other folks that signed up to speak to this and any others
Sure, Grant,
on your
yeah.
side too. And then we'll kind of discuss it, see if we can work our way through it.
Yeah, I'd say one more quick item about this. This is more than just a turkey shoot issue, okay? Like I said, it was the memberships, roundups, noise. We have on premises drinking, so we can drink in that parking lot. And some beautiful days we have our parties, our roundups outside. I know the DJ got loud a couple of times, and we went and got the permit to exceed the local decimal. But I'm sitting out in the street all day with a damn decimal reader, making sure he doesn't break that, so these people don't complain. I'm sure they seen me out there with a box, wondering what I'm doing out there on the highway. But that's for their benefit. So, in the motorcycles, that's a big issue, and I know it is, because they went around with a petition yesterday in the neighborhood trying to get everybody to sign this petition about motorcycle noise. I don't know what to tell you about it. Susan Johnson don't know what to tell you. They're legal, inspected, certified motorcycles, and they make noise. Loud pipes save lives. So we have a motorcycle chapter there, now second year there, and we have other motorcycle groups gathered there, and we're going to have other ones coming here in the future. And, I know they're loud, but what can you do? They're not there all that long. It's like a motorcycle. How long does it take to get past your house?
How about a motorcycle at 2 o'clock in the morning?
I don't know about no motorcycles at 2 o'clock in the morning. Not us. We ain't even open at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, that's the complaints we're hearing.
Well, I don't know who they are. They need to find out who the people are.
Well,
They got Krabby's Restaurant down there.
They're
All
the
them bikers
businesses
go
that-
down there.
right then.
One way in, one way out. Then we get blamed for it. That's all I got to say right now. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else want to speak on the pro side of this particular issue before I other folks up? I have Ken Green. You want to come up and tell us your side? And your name and address for the record, please, too, Mr. Green, if you will. Yeah, you can hand it to Mr. Scanlon. He'll pass it around.
Folks, my name is Ken Green. My wife and I reside at 167 Worth Guard Road in Coinjock, village of Coinjock. We're here along with some other people tonight from Coinjock to plead with you not to allow special accommodations for the firing of discharging of firearms in violation to the county ordinance. Yes, sir, it is more than just a turkey shoot. There's at stake here. For the past few years, we've been putting up with a lot of noise. And we realize that, the Legion has to make money and try to get up money for events and stuff. But, it shouldn't be at the health and welfare, at risk of health and welfare of the people around. Let me just say, though, that, this is in no way an attack on the Legion or a slur against the veterans of our country. My father is a retired colonel. He claims he's got more decorations than a Christmas tree. But, when you do things that is not in keeping with the public spirit, it's going to be repercussions. And that's it should be the same from everybody. The subject we're here tonight is for only the latest in about a 4-year history in which we've endured unreasonable noise levels, outrageous behavior, and a general lack of respect for the community that houses the Legion Post. Over the years, the community has been a gracious and patient host to the Legion, but the Legion has made changes in ways that I'm afraid may jeopardize that amiable relationship. Apparently, the commander and some of the other members of Coinjock think this is their personal playground and that the residents have no say. I can tell you tonight that we disagree. There's 25 people on that list there that signed that are in the general vicinity. They're within the 300 yards, most of them, who just don't want it. And like I say, I know the Legion needs to raise money. I've given them propane before, and I'll give it to them again to have cookouts, to sell plates or whatever they want to do. I rebuilt a pig cooker for them, and they gave me, for 2 years in a row, I had a, honorary membership for the sales. There's lots of ways to make money that doesn't make a lot of noise. And the motorcycles, when we talked to Mr. Kohler, I talked to Bruce Perron originally, and he talked to the Legion, and Mr. Kohler come over and assured us that the motorcycle noise would be taken care of. And in general, it was, except for the commander, to be honest with you. He's the first one there and the last one to leave, and that's commendable. But, at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and he's leaving out and blazing saddles and waking people up, I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't think anybody's reported at 2 o'clock, but I can tell you that it was 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I sleep pretty hard. And it woke me up, and it wasn't the first time. And I had to speak to Mr. Kohler twice. In fact, the only way we could get the noise, to keep from leaving like that was have him given a warning by the sheriff's department. And, the sheriff's department can confirm everything I'm telling you as far as that goes. We have before you there 2 letters, one we couldn't find, that we wrote to the Legion asking them to please control the noise. The first thing we did was I spoke with Bruce Perron, and that triggered an audience with Mr. Kohler. He assured me they'd take care of it. But it wasn't long after that Mr. Kohler left. And I don't know about all that, but I do know they started another post in Moyock. And I don't know what, all the ins and outs of all that. But then we asked, we made the phone calls. When the parties got loud, they'd have a band or the DJ was there. And you could, I don't know if you're familiar with Coinjock, but you could hear it all the way up at Kevin's store. And, on the phone call that we made, there wasn't a real pleasant reply to it, asking them to turn it down some. So, it's just kind of been an ongoing thing. as far as noise. And they've got a nice facility there with a lot of room inside. I don't know why everything has to be outside and it has to be so loud. We live. My front door is 300 feet from the front door of the shooting range, and that's the people that are here tonight. There's 7 people here that live as close as I do to the Legion, and they're not liking it much either. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's against the law to do it. I mean, I realize, they've been doing it for a long time, but, there's a law made. So just like anybody else, now you got to move on and deal with it and come up with other ways to do it. Of course, I was quiet during their time of talking, but, the motorcycle issue is what it is. There's a noise ordinance for motorcycles as well, if I'm not mistaken, is it?
Against the law to ride a motorcycle.
Hey, no more outbreaks like that, please.
We have nothing against motorcycles. We have nothing against the Legion. We just would like, a little peace and quiet, especially on Sunday, and ask them to hold the noise levels down. I think you can see probably why we have a little bit worried about coming before you all with this, judging by some of the reactions in the crowd. And that's exactly why there's only 7 people here tonight. It's pure fear.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something?
Go ahead.
Can we keep it focused on the guns? I think that's why we're here instead of the motorcycles. No offense to this gentleman.
Well, I was going to kind of divide those issues up when we got to it like that. I wanted to hear both of that there. Is that all you had, Mr. Green?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I know Ms. Green is signed up. I assume that's Mrs.
Excuse
Green.
me,
Margie
could
Green.
I ask Mr. Green a question?
Sure.
Mr. Green, the concern of the citizens, it didn't get out of hand so much. I mean, they've been doing this, I think Mr. Jasinski said, for 40 years.
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been a resident there?
I've been there 10. My wife's been there 17.
Okay. And so when did this actually become a real annoyance, since you all have lived there for so long? You mentioned 4 years.
Yes, sir. It just didn't seem like the noise factor was there. The motorcycles, maybe they were there, but just weren't as loud.
Well, how about the shooting?
The shooting has been there on Saturdays, but it's just because you're putting up with something don't mean you like it, And we had no idea that we had any recourse whatsoever. I don't think anybody's ever really liked it, but it's been in the past. There was no law in place to stop it, and now that there is, I think it should be enforced.
This is it's been mentioned, if you could come to some agreement. I don't know, what other, I guess, questions that we could present, but, being good neighbors and everything, I would only ask, I would like to see, something that's been going on for 40 years and everything, that there would be some give. Perhaps you would have one shooting match a month or something like that. I don't know how often they are, but if there would be some way the parties could get together to come to some agreement. And I don't know if you'd be amenable to it or the other people on this petition.
Well, everyone has to speak their own mind, but Mr. Jasinski said that they have 6 acres. 6 acres of property. Why can't they move it to the back?
All right. Thank you, sir.
That would get the noise a lot better. The backside of the property. That's at least an option.
All right. Thank you.
Mrs. Green, did you wish to speak?
Good evening.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good to see you all tonight. I appreciate you all being here to listen to what we have to say to you all this evening. This is a very important thing. My name is Marguerite Green. I live at 167 Worthgard Road. I bought my home nearly 18 years ago from Miss Daisy Palmer. I love my home, and I love Coinjock. I'm a lifelong resident of Currituck. I was actually born in Dr. Wright's office down in Jarvisburg more years ago than I would like to admit. Mine and my husband's home is directly across the street from the American Legion Post, number 288, and I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, it is not a good thing. No one volunteered the information to me when I bought my home of what I was getting ready to have to contend with across the street. Not a single soul told me what I was getting ready to contend with. The building where they shoot from 12 to 5 on Saturday and lately also on Sunday is 300 feet from my front door, 300 feet from my bedroom that I sleep in every night, 300 feet from my front porch that I can't spend any time on when there's activities going on across the street. You cannot get away from the sound, whether you are inside or whether you are outside. You cannot get away from the sound. They call it a turkey shoot, but it seems more like 4 or 5 cars or trucks of folks target shooting all day long. There's also alcohol involved, and I, for one, do not think that alcohol and guns mix well with a small family-filled neighborhood like ours. There are too many acres of property in this county to allow shooting in good folks' front and backyards. We're all concerned for our safety, our welfare, what's going to happen when an accident occurs and it's too late. Who will be to blame then? Who will pay the medical bills? Or worse yet, who will pay the salary of a family member who's been lost? They also hold outdoor parties called membership drives. The parking lot where they are held is approximately 100 feet from my front door. They are normally held on Sunday from 12-ish to 5-ish. We get to hear that from the moment we get home from church on Sunday until they decide to call it quits. Those functions include an incredibly loud DJ on a very loud PA system, or if we're really lucky, there's going to be a live band. Really lucky. They normally start out quiet enough, but by 2:30 or 3 o'clock, it's usually wide open. The noise level literally makes the windows in my house rattle all day long. I cannot open up the windows in the summertime. I cannot sit out in my yard. I cannot have guests over on the days that there are functions across the street. Add to the noise the heavy alcohol consumption and it becomes totally out of control. The last outdoor party they had was a woman's party. And that day I saw a grown man urinating in public. I listened to a very loud and very drunk man on the microphone yelling over and over and over again, "Who let the dogs out?" It's very funny. With an equally rowdy crowd answering, some with not nice language. That's only one day. That is one day, one party, one instance that I can tell you so many after 17 years. We have children, old folks' families. We have a church in our neighborhood. What are these grown people, the members, thinking? How would any of you feel about having those kind of things happening in your front yard? The last thing I would like to comment on is the attitude and the misbehavior of the post's commander himself. We politely asked him personally through a series of letters and phone calls to quit gunning his loud motorcycle when he comes in and out of the parking lot. It's almost daily. He's the first in and the last out, just like my husband said. But it seems when you ask these folks to calm down, they just get worse. There is attitude, not compliance. Last fall, after the sheriff had been to visit him at the post, when he left that night on his motorcycle, the noise and the stench of burnt rubber hung in the air for 30 minutes. That's the kind of attitude that we have been dealing with. There's also a gang of motorcyclists who've been hanging there quite a lot lately, and we are told that the commander himself is a member of that gang.
Please hold your comments to yourself while a speaker is speaking, or I'll have you moved.
If I have to obey the law, so should they. Personally, we are done with it. Done with it. So is the neighborhood. Every resident that lives around the situation from one end of Worthgard Road to the other. I don't think there's a single person in our neighborhood whom attends any of the meetings any longer. We've been told by many past members that they want nothing more to do with that post. Many of the old-timers have moved to the alcohol-free post in Moyock. They all know and agree that this post is out of control. So does the Sheriff's Department and the deputies know, and so does the State Patrol. And now, hopefully, I hope that now you all know also. I've seen the glares. I have watched the threatening behavior. I've heard the very distinctive voice from across the street saying that we had better watch our ASSs. I've been worried for my dog, my husband. I've had to set up security lights and cameras. I've literally been afraid of someone burning my house down. That's not drama. That is my life. And I'm going to tell you, that is no way to live. I refuse to live like this anymore. One way or another, I refuse to live like this anymore. We've been to the offenders. We've been to the Sheriff's Department. They've helped as much as the law allows. It's a dangerous situation for them to walk into. Guys drinking with guns. And we thank the Sheriff's Department. We've been to the regional commander of the Legion itself, who was more worried about muddying the good name of the American Legion than the safety and the goodwill of the residents of Coinjock. And frankly, the residents are not the ones who are muddying the name of the Legion. The members who have allowed this to continue are guilty of that. And now we come to you, the county commissioners. The ordinance is already in place for the protection and safety of the citizens of Currituck. Did someone forget about the safety, the sanity, and the right to peace for Coinjock's residents as well? Are we not part of Currituck County also? Please, I beg you, please do not allow shooting in Coinjock. Please stand by your ordinance by not allowing the American Legion to hold turkey shoots any longer or disrupt the peace of the citizens of Coinjock any longer. And Mr. Jasinski says that none of us contacted him. That is not true. We sent 3 letters. His secretary herself told me that only one of them was received and read to the American Legion. The first 2 letters that I wrote named him as a big part of the problem. He never passed them on to the Legion members, and none of them ever saw any of those letters or those complaints. And that's been going on for 4 years. So respectfully, I thank each of you for your time, your consideration, your good sense of family and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you.
Next person I have signed up to speak is Tammy Hamilton.
My name's Tammy Hamilton. I live at 112 Marshall Court, Moyock, North Carolina. I am the Post Adjutant Secretary of the American Legion in Coinjock. Yes, it is true. She did hear from me that there was only 1 letter. Back December 16th, I called Miss Green to try and meet with her and rectify the issues, to discuss what was going on. And I told her that way I could bring it to the general membership. Let them hear what she feels is going on and try and get a solution. She said, fine. We made arrangements to meet the following week. I had to work Monday. She had to teach piano class. But I was off on Wednesday. Give her a call when I got off on Tuesday, which I told her probably be about 7 o'clock. Give me a call and we'll make arrangements to meet on Wednesday. I called her about 7 o'clock Tuesday night to make the arrangements. Her husband answered the phone. I explained I was Tammy Hamilton from the American Legion. I wished to speak to Miss Green. He asked me what it was about. I told him I'd made arrangements to meet with your wife tomorrow. He said he'd give her the message she was not home and that I would get a return phone call. 20 minutes later, at 7:40 that night, I received a phone call. Is this Tammy Hamilton from the American Legion? Yes, it is. My wife has no intentions of meeting with you. Okay, we have gone the necessary routes. We've tried. Okay, I've only received word of 1 letter. I do recall Bob Kohler back 3 years ago after our Legion Riders charter was developed that there were complaints about the motorcycles where they would sit out and they would meet up at the post before going to the park for whether it was a Memorial Day ceremony, any type of ceremony. That was where they would meet and ride in together. He asked that we quiet it down, so they started meeting at the school after that and just riding them through instead of all meeting at the post. Okay? I basically wanted to let you all know what our turkey shoot does. I mean, our charter was March 13th, 1973. Shortly after that charter, the turkey shoot started. We've never had any problems. The turkey shoot runs, the sign up is 11 o'clock. The shoot commences at 12. The turkey shoot is over by 2. I've run the bar for the members that weren't shooting in there, myself as a volunteer, or I've been a guest in there because I do not shoot at the turkey shoot, and I have never seen it last past 2:15. Okay? Anything past that is generally everybody getting together, gathering up all the trash, going out and collecting the brass, and cleaning up and locking it down, and then they went into the lounge. Okay? Once a quarter, we have a membership roundup. If the weather is bad, we're inside, and we've had 3 of them inside since I've been the membership chairman in the past 4 years. Okay? 3 times a year we do this. They last from 1 o'clock. They're scheduled till 5. They usually run down about 4 o'clock after we talk about everybody at the 3 o'clock time period. That's usually when we do awards or the 50-50, then everything begins to wind down. And a lot of people leave. Okay? We did have to talk to the DJ after our last roundup. He did get loud. And we did discuss that with him, that he could not do that. Since then, we have purchased a decibel reader. Okay? At one point, we had the fish tournament fish fry. Everybody was outside. We had a DJ out there. Not the same one. He's a real quiet guy. He likes to play karaoke, and I can imagine why the cops did get called, because there was some pretty bad karaoke that day. And it was not Bruce Barron with Who Let the Dogs Out. That was at the next roundup. But when the cops came out there with this decibel reading, 5 bikes drove by. They did not belong to the post. They were not affiliated with our post. But boy, did they let their bikes run. I've rode down Coinjock. There's a lot of bikes that hang out at Krabby's. I don't know if they just hang out there or if they go there to eat. Okay? We are not all the bikes there. In a meeting that I had with the county attorney, the post commander, and Sheriff Johnson, bikes are growing. People can't afford gas. There's more and more, don't take this wrong, anybody, older gentlemen buying bikes. Okay, there's 4 guys at my job that are buying motorcycles because they never had the opportunity to before. So there's nothing we can do about the bikes. However, if the community would like to get together with us and not backdoor us, come to a general meeting, meet our general membership, and see what we can do. I mean, oyster roasts, we used to have them out back. We have a canopy and all out back where we always did that. But with the yellow flies the last year, we could not do that. We'll work with the community, but the community needs to be willing to work with us as well. If the general membership did not know about 3 other letters, then the community needs to come forward and talk to us and let us know. Okay, I know there were letters given to Post Command. They're telling it's 4 years this has been going on. Well, when I spoke to Miss Green, she told me this has been going on 4 years, ever since John Jasinski's been Post Commander. John Jasinski has been the Post Commander for the past year, as of December. Okay, so 13 months he's been the Post Commander. Prior to that, within that 4-year period, and when Bob Kohler was the first Vice Commander, when we adopted the charter for the Legion Riders, Bob Kohler was the Post Commander. And he only brought this information up to us 1 time. I take the minutes for our meetings. I can bring in all the documentation. As a matter of fact, it's all in my car at this time. Everything that goes on in our meetings, including the letter that was received and read to the membership. It was read because I read it to the membership. That's all.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yeah. Okay. Question.
Ma'am, ask you a question. You say the turkey shoots and go from 12 to 2.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay. On the Sunday that y'all got the citation, what time of day were the police officers out there?
They started that turkey shoot intentionally after church services. They started it from 2 o'clock. But with the number of shoots that we have and the double shoots, they range about 2 hours.
I know, but if you remember, maybe Post Commander, when you got the ticket that afternoon, what time of day was it? That Sunday afternoon?
We're on shoot 9, sir, out of 16, so it was about 3:15, somewhere in there.
Is it possible that you're leasing the club out to other people is creating problems for you?
Well, it's not really leasing. We let them use our property, and we write that off as community service. Okay, you follow me? No money exchanges hands.
You understand where I'm going with it?
Yeah.
You know.
No, that group that was there wasn't causing no problem. I was there. I was there the whole day running it, make sure there was nothing going wrong.
At 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
And I saw what went on.
Mr. Idlett, you have a question?
Again, I received a phone call one Sunday afternoon when one of the DJs was out there. Some of the most vulgar language that I have heard was coming out, and you could hear it over the telephone. I don't know who was doing it, have no idea. I was not there, but I know what I heard. And if you folks have control of the functions that go on there, then it would be good to take control of those and move things forward. But I know what I heard. I know what my ears don't play tricks on me. I know what I heard.
Like I said, the post commander wasn't outside. I'd come outside just as it was getting loud, and we called him down.
I'm addressing it to whoever. I'm addressing it to the club. I know what I heard. And I certainly would not want it in my neighborhood. I wouldn't put up with it in my neighborhood, what I heard that day.
Okay, well, let me get back on course here, because the ordinance that we're discussing has only to do with the turkey shoots. Bad behavior isn't part of what we've been asked to decide today. It may have a factor on what we decide, and it may be something we need to stipulate, but I'd like to hear from some other folks, too. I noticed the sheriff is in the back of the room there, and I'd ask her to come to offer any input or suggestions that she might have relative to that if she wants to do so, or if she's going to make Deputy Chappell come up and do it, I'm not sure. And I'm sure she wants to tell us that she'll enforce anything we enact, but we're not going to let you off the hook that easy.
You're absolutely correct. That's what I'm here to tell you. You are the legislative body. Whatever you decide to enact as a county ordinance, whether you amend it or not, we're here to enforce it. And I have no opinion either way about the decision you make tonight about the amendment to the ordinance. That's your business. That's your decision to make. And if you decide that that's what you want to do, we'll enforce it.
Okay, I have some questions then. What has been the experience of law enforcement in Currituck County vis-a-vis these events, shall we call them, not related to the turkey shoot, but the other noise-causing events that seem to be occurring there?
We have responded to a few calls. Those have resulted with warnings until the last call that we received was at a turkey shoot, and that call resulted in the written citation.
I'd call it a traffic situation, but the bikes, obviously, we realize that the bikes traversing Worthgard Road don't all come from the American Legion post.
They do not.
And obviously, they've got no control over that, and you wouldn't either unless they were violating one of the motor vehicle ordinances. So I don't think there's anything we can address that. Do you have any idea of how we might address the noise and issues that do perhaps emanate from the facility?
I believe that the meeting we had with Ike and the commander of the Legion, I believe they're serious about meeting them halfway and making the changes that are necessary for them not to be in violation.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments for the sheriff? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, does anybody else want to speak to this issue while we're in the discussion phase?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I guess I can speak to this as well as anyone, having grown up in Water Lily, Churches Island, and spent most of my days in Coin Jock growing up. My best friend at the time, his father, Joe Melson, used to carry Johnny Melson and me to the American Legion turkey shoots back in the early 70s. And as I recall, when I would go and participate, never won anything, but I participated, there was never an issue. It was run very orderly. The crowd was very respectful. It was done for a short period of time, and then it was over with. But guess what? They were drinking beer out there while they were shooting shotguns. I'm not saying that's happening now, but there was beer consumed, and it was a group of older, respectful men. And for years, on Saturday afternoon, there was a turkey shoot. That's all there was outside at the American Legion. People in the neighborhood had no problem with it. It was a turkey shoot, went on Saturday afternoon. Other than that, you just see cars in the Legion parking lot. Recently, that's all changed. It's not just a turkey shoot. It's a party outside that is disturbing the neighborhood. Now, our dear chairman keeps saying we need to stick to the turkey shoot issue. Well, he's right. That's what brought it to fruition here. But the issue, if the turkey shoots were run in accordance to like they used to be done from 12 to 2 or 12 to 3 or whatever it was on Saturdays, I see you're asking for between 12 and 8 o'clock on Friday or Saturday.
And then just make clear that that's your attorney that's making a proposal for your consideration. They did not request that.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a number of these things are expanded.
All right, well, that looked very broad to me. But I will tell you that your issue is not, even though that's what we're talking about, your issue is not the turkey shoot. Your issue is the behavior that's going on outside the Legion. You may be able to drink outside, which is fine and dandy, but you're in a neighborhood. You have to be respectful of the people that live in the neighborhood. Not all those people want to hoot and holler and party all afternoon on Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon. That is the key to your problem. It's not the turkey shoot. That's just the symptom. But the issue is what's going on other than the turkey shoots. When I was growing up, as I said, I spent a lot of time in CoinJock. That was never an issue. That's just been a recent phenomenon. And I've received phone calls too. And a lot of the phone calls at first was just let them stick to the turkey shoot. But that didn't get resolved. Now it's become the whole mushroom issue of what goes on outside. And if you want to have activities out there, you have to be respectful of the neighborhood. You can't ignore the people that live in the neighborhood and expect them to welcome you in their neighborhood. And that's what the real issue is. The real issue is what's going on other than the turkey shoots. And that's what's got to be addressed.
Well, that's what I wanted to break into two parts. And the reason for that is the limitations on the turkey shoots, because that's been going on for a long time.
40 years.
Right. But the behavior, we don't have an ordinance against except in certain circumstances. But I can guarantee you we will have one against it if it continues, because you're abusing the neighbors. Now, I haven't been there personally, so I don't know exactly what's going on. But you're operating in the middle of a residential occupied area, and you're going to have to be respectful of those people. And if the behavior that disturbs the neighbors continues, we will find a way to limit that. So what Commissioner O'Neill is saying is exactly right. As I said, there's more than one issue here, and they need to be addressed individually, but they're all part of the big picture. The pushback you get from the neighborhoods because they feel like you're taking advantage of them and you're abusing them when they try to complain about it. So if we can find a way to allow you to continue with the fundraising using the turkey shoots under controlled conditions, I don't know if anybody else has a problem with that. I don't really have so much of a problem with that, but I do have a problem with what would be events that require a permit outside any other place in Currituck County by any other entity. And if you can get that under control, that may not be necessary, but if you can't get it under control, you may be required to get a permit every time you want to come outside that place and have music and do anything related to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Again, as I said a while ago, I think there's already language in the ordinance that addresses just exactly what you and Mr. O'Neill had said. Building goodwill within the community and having the community come together and stand behind and support the Legion, and the Legion supports the neighborhood, to me is the way to solve the issue. And I'll leave it at that.
But do you have a recommendation of how the wording in here would be doing? Or just mean leave
Mr.
the
Chairman,
ordinance
can I
as it is?
go back to my original suggestion that, is it possible that we could get some people in the community together, and maybe Mr. Green and some other people, and some people in the post to come up with some guidelines or some rules that, and make them fair, balanced, and these are the rules, and everybody controls their own destiny. I'll go back to my original suggestion that we can table this, and I'll volunteer to do it, or Mr. Adler can do it, anybody else can do it, just to get people together. I know, I volunteered. I did. Okay.
And I'm volunteering the county attorney if you do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with what Commissioner Petrie's saying, but I do think the county attorney and the planning director needs to come up with the definition of subdivision so that it applies in this manner.
Well, my feeling was that they probably would end up with writing the ordinance in some way that the definition of subdivision really wasn't so much the issue as how far you can be from an occupied residence. But,
Well, I
the
think
distances we go in
we've
would do.
got it spelled out for the two instances we have in this county. It's just a determination what this falls under. Because if you carve out a special exception for this, what do we do the next time somebody comes in?
Well, that's a good point. That's what we were addressing, is that this is a special exception just to accommodate the American Legion for those turkey shoots. I'm willing to entertain a motion to table it for study, but I'd like some direction as to the time frame and who's going to get together to do it. If you want to,
I'll make the motion to continue it till the next meeting, and then I'll get everybody concerned, and we'll see where it goes. And if I need the sheriff to referee, we'll do that. But just come up with some guidelines that, again, these guys, I've seen them firsthand at the food pantry. They do a lot for the community, and I honor these guys that serve our country. But by the same token, the neighbors that live there have a right to some kind of peace and quiet, especially on a Sunday. So if they're saying 12 to 2 on a Saturday, these are the guidelines. But that's where I want to try to strike a compromise. So I'm willing to chair it, put it together, get the phone calls, do whatever, and I make a motion we table it for 2 weeks.
Mr. Petrie, I'll second your motion.
any other discussion?
I would suggest that you conduct the meetings here in this building so it's on equal, fair ground.
And I would like to see, I'd like to see some discussion in that too of the possibility of location for the events on the property, if they have sufficient property to move it further away from the occupied residences. And, I know that may be difficult to do, particularly with the situation you said with the yellow flies and so on, but that may go a long way if you do some clearing to resolve this.
Well, if the county attorney will take part of this and give us some legal direction. But again, I'm just trying to reach a compromise that's happy for everybody.
Okay, well, I've got a motion, a second, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Item C under public hearings. Public hearing and action on resolution authorizing the filing of an application for approval of a financing agreement not to exceed $10 million for the design and construction of an aviation technical and training facility. There will be a partnership with the College of the Albemarle and be constructed in Maple, North Carolina. And which one of our folks is going to lead it off? Mr. Scanlon is going to discuss that for us. Thank you.
That sounds like compromise going out the door.
Good.
That's what we do with all the time.
I'd just like to say, I don't think all of us got to say what we wanted to say. I mean, we're a big organization, and we weren't represented by the entire body. I had a few things I wanted to say, too, before I got up.
Well, that's the reason for tabling it, to allow discussion of everybody rather than doing it tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the public hearing will continue at the next meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, when units of government look forward to borrowing money, they're required under general statutes to go in front of the local government commission, which is a branch of the Treasury Department, and we've got to make certain findings to them to get approval to borrow funds. We're here tonight as part of that process asking the board's support of a resolution authorizing us to go to the LGC to request funding. As you mentioned, the project in front of us is the aviation and technical training facility. The board is required to find 7 particular points of fact that the resolution lays out. I'd like to just cover those very quickly for you. The first fact is that the contract is necessary and expedient. We feel it is. We feel like the VOTEC opportunities that this facility is bringing to Northeast North Carolina meets those requirements. The contract, we are looking to do a basic borrowing versus a bond issue, much like you would do an installment purchase for a home is our preferred method. Number 3 is that the amount we're borrowing is adequate and not excessive. Number 4 is that we've identified a revenue source to support the debt, which we have. It is not a tax-based, property tax-based debt. We have a revenue that we will pledge against it. We are not looking to raise property taxes as part of this. That's one of your findings. We are not in default of any current obligations, and the county attorney has reviewed the application and has rendered an opinion that it meets the public funds and is lawful. We are looking to borrow, although the resolution here gives us up an authorization up to $10 million. That's the limit you can do an installment borrowing from. It is not our intention to borrow that. As we move forward and stuff, the recommendation is that you put that cap because that's the limit. I think we'll be bringing back something to you very soon, more closely in the range of between $6 million and $6.5 million will be the ultimate borrowing. But at the start of this process, it does require the Board of Commissioners adopt this resolution, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
What is the revenue stream?
It is going to be sales tax.
Other questions? Do you have a motion?
So move.
We have to have open a public hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry. I did say public hearing, didn't it? Okay. Does anybody want to speak to this? I didn't have anybody signed up, that's why.
I do want to ask the county manager one question, either after Mr. Ross or before.
Okay.
Mr. Scanlon, do we have a projection from COA how many students could benefit from this project?
I don't have that with me, but I have heard their projections, but I don't recall exactly what that number is.
Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Martin, have either one of you?
No, I have not, but I do know that this is not only an aviation proponent, it is the technical classes which are now housed at COA, which will be moving here, which will greatly broaden the advantages for our local students and people, close by to take advantage of this.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, Mr. Office.
Do you need the address again?
No.
Okay. Could you explain that one more time, please?
Which part?
What you're trying to do with the $10 million?
Well, it's not. The $10 million is the upper
million?
limit. We are actually borrowing less than that. We will be building. We have formed a partnership with the College of the Albemarle to construct a facility out at Maple. The facility will house an aviation and technical training center, basically a FOTEC for the community.
Whose land are we acquiring for that?
We own the land. We will own the building.
Okay. How long have we owned the land?
We already own it.
How long have we owned it?
Oh, how long have we owned it? Well, we had it on a lease agreement through the state of North Carolina for probably 30 or 40 years. We acquired title probably in the last
2006.
Yeah.
Okay. And this
title.
Okay. And this project is mainly centered on creating VOTEC education for children. Is that what I understand?
Primary, correct, yes.
Okay, what's the secondary?
Aviation-related education.
Aviation-related education. Does that mean expansion?
Skills. Working with powertrains, working with welding, sheet metal, those trades that would be associated with aviation, and on the machinist. Mechanical drafting, those kinds of skills.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Is it? Are we looking at extended runways for this project?
Not extended runways, no.
Okay. Extended additional buildings on the property to house all this
Well,
activity.
the building itself, and there will be an apron that will attach the facility to the runway, so the aircraft coming in can come over to the facility.
Okay. Let's say the project runs $7 million, right? Total, finished, done. Will we just stop it there, or will you guys have access to the additional $3 million that encompasses a $10 million cap?
We will only borrow the amount needed to build the facility.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I would like to make one comment. When we say aviation tech, that's, I don't want to say it's a misnomer, but the skills that are going to be taught there, people will be able to go to the shipyard, they'll be able to go, they'll be able to learn how to start their own business, they'll be able to do HVAC, they'll be able to do painting, some of the skills that are going to be taught there, I think there's even isn't there a little bit of drafting possibly as well? It's something that the entire Northeast, every county, has been trying to get a vocational education training center. It seems like so many of our kids now are tracked automatically to go to college. If you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful. Well, somebody's got to make things. Somebody has to repair things. Somebody has to do the things that maybe you're not going to do when you go to college. And that's been a big gap in the area for a long time. And our kids, as I say, I have 3 children. Not every child is going to be an architect, an engineer, a doctor, whatever. Even the boards of education in the area have been clamoring for some type of technical training, a dual track for our kids. Mm-hmm. So it's not just our kids that'll benefit. It'll be the entire Northeast that is going to benefit from this technical training center. And it just so happens that it's going to be at the airport, and it's going to teach a lot of aviation technical skills. I was talking with a large employer in Pasquotank County, told me that he has to hire people from out of state and bring them in here.
All the way to Alabama.
Alabama, Kansas, to bring people in here because there's not a skilled workforce for the type of work that needs to be done in these jobs. And this is going to be a big boon for the area when it's said and done and completed. So I just don't want us to get hung up on aviation. Aviation is so much more than aviation. Thank you.
It is. I have a comment to make on that. With our youth, they are not technically, prepped for going out into the workforce. With the aging population of the machinists, I work for a ship repair company, and we struggle with getting a younger workforce in our industry, and this is just a shoe-in for our surrounding areas to bring people not only in Northeast North Carolina and from Southeast North Virginia. It's going to bring people from a lot of areas, but it will also help with our high school students. It's a local place that they can come to for their VOTAC, and it's a given that we need to support this.
Charlie?
And I think one component of this that we really have not said anything about, this is not only about just the kids, it's about adults in our communities as well who need re-job training skills and that type of stuff to be able to go out and look for other jobs because of a certain industry has gotten to the point to where it's not sustaining their families anymore. So it's a comprehensive look and a comprehensive plan that we're trying to put together to help everyone within our community educate themselves and become better employable.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for having to leave. I had to take a phone call. But I think it's important to note that Currituck County, through past boards of commissioners, current boards of commissioners, and our current staff, has got Currituck County in a position where we were able to fulfill COA coming to us. Other people had the opportunity, I think, before we did, and they weren't in the same position that Currituck County is in. And due to planning, like I said, previous boards, current boards, our staff, Mr. Scanlon and his staff, we were in the right place at the right time where nobody else could step up to the plate, and Currituck County did it. And I think that speaks volumes about, how things go on in Currituck County.
Mr. Chairman, I'll add one thing. I think Commissioner O'Neill and Martin will agree. Every time we've had a meeting with other county boards of commissioners, this has always been a topic of discussion, a cooperative venture in vocational training that we could undertake. And COA, as Mr. Petrie said, has come into this, and we all agree this is an opportunity for our children and other people in the county. Thank you.
Well, I agree. In fact, I want to make a comment about that. When I first came here, the problems Currituck was having that were most weighing upon the adult population were, number one, when our kids graduate from high school, they have to leave. That's no longer going to be necessary because they'll be able to learn to do something here. The second one was when we want to invite industry to come into the area to do things, the industries tell us we build things. We need people that know what a 9/16 inch wrench is and what to do with it. And the only source of that has been farmers and retired military. And we're running out of those. We've got to replenish the supply. And this addresses that as well. So the whole idea behind this is figure out what's wrong with the world and find a way to fix it. And we're going to continue to try to do that every way we can. It's only by increasing the size of the tax base in Currituck County that we keep the taxes low for everybody. So. Ms. Tabb, do you want to speak?
Can I just ask a question? Tony Tabb, and I'm from 328 Mason Lane, Moyock. I have a question. I think it sounds like something that is a very beneficial project for not just Currituck County, but for Pasquotank and Camden and I guess Gates, anybody else that could come to this area. The community college is the partner. But I guess my question is, I know this was an opportunity for Pasquotank, and they had to pass on it because they didn't have the money. So what we're doing here then is we're asking the Currituck taxpayers to pay for something that's going to be used for the region. Are we getting any funds from any of the other counties? Or how, you mentioned sales tax was the way that it was going to be paid for. I guess I'm just curious, where is the 6.8 million or coming from?
It's going to be paid back from sales tax.
So, but just in Currituck County, it's our sales tax. Is it state sales tax, or is it?
If you address the question directly, though, we own the building. The sales tax in Currituck County is paying for a building owned by Currituck County, owned property owned by Currituck County.
So we're paying for the building.
Excuse me. The College of the Albemarle is actually furnishing, providing all the equipment, staffing, and operating facility. So, indeed, they are making a contribution to this, and that is a regional contribution. But there's no reason that Pasquotank or Dare or Gates or anybody else would pay for a building that we own.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could I also include the idea of having a college in this county is a huge, huge plus for economic development. The College of the Albemarle is the largest area served by any community college in North Carolina. We have campuses in Dare County. We have campuses in Edenton, Perquimans, and now Currituck will join that whole conglomerate. And that gives kids a chance to go, because each one of these centers have certain specialties where they can go. If you want to learn how to work on a marine diesel engine, you go to Dare County's COA campus. So this is a tremendous plus, and it's only going to make Currituck that much better for the future. And yes, it's going to help all of northeastern North Carolina, because that's what community colleges do. And it's going to be a tremendous asset for us.
Well, I don't doubt that they do, and I'm a beneficiary of that. I have a community college degree and a bachelor's degree, so I very much...
Oh, you understand?
Yeah, I understand that. And as a matter of fact, I took my broker classes at COA when I came to North Carolina, so I don't doubt that. My concern is just, in tough times, if this is going to add to just the normal cost or the operating cost of the county, that we're going to have a burden going forward. Is this going to affect our property taxes, to be able to sustain it? That's all. I just want to know where the money's coming from. I know everyone's going to benefit in the area.
To clarify one other thing, Dare County has a campus that students from Currituck County go to, but we don't pay for it.
Exactly.
Elizabeth City has a campus that students from Currituck County go to, they pay for it. It's the same principle. We're going to have people that may come from Dare County to our campus. So it's going to be an entirely different, I won't say entirely different, but a much more multifaceted, hands-on training for our young people, displaced people, and underemployed people. So it's not going to affect the property tax rate. Currituck County over the years has built and paid for pretty much everything we've built, and we have not increased taxes because of any building project, and the operating expenses will be paid for entirely by College of the Albemarle or the state. The county is not going. Well, we'll pay the electricity bill, but the teachers and
the instructional, all the costs associated with instructional comes out of COA's budget.
That's correct.
We will have because it's our building, we will have an operating cost associated with the building. We already budget and pay that to COA. So the annual appropriation required to support the building is already in our budget.
Right.
It will be used to support this particular facility, so it will have no impact on future budgets.
Because I share your same questions whenever something comes forward.
Just a question. I
They're
want to know.
good questions and legitimate questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Roy, can I ask Mr. Scanlon a couple of questions?
Yes, you may.
Sales tax is primary for capital expenditures. And it does not go into operational funding.
There's several pieces of sales tax that get into us.
But the one that we're
sales tax
identifying-
we're talking about tonight is restricted for capital purposes, and it goes into a fund specifically for construction. And those funds, those revenues will be pledged in the future to pay back this debt.
And I believe the last time we had an analysis that about 70%, 75% of our sales tax is paid from people outside of Currituck County.
Well, it's a blended. The sales tax doesn't represent sales that just occur in Currituck County. A portion of that is sales throughout the state that is shared back with each county. Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Office.
Paul, like yourself, I have a 15-year-old son, and the VOTEC, man, that sounds right up the alley. But there's a lot of things I would like to have, but the checkbook don't have the money in it. Okay, so with the county here, just a few questions. What is the annual revenue for Currituck County sales tax currently?
Are you talking about in total or the portion that goes towards construction?
Well, for this project, what portion is going for the project?
It's probably, off the top of my head, it's a little over $2 million, I believe, a year of the sales tax that goes into a construction fund, and the debt service for this project will be less than that.
Okay. But
so
any
it
other...
will not require all of the funds that we're receiving each year to pay for the debt.
Okay. What other projects are in that construction fund that require that funding?
At this moment, none.
Okay. All right. What happens if the economy goes south, tourism stops, or slows down considerably, either through a natural disaster or the economy, and that sales tax revenue wanes? Can we put into the, I don't know the correct legal term, but put it in document form that the county or how can we say it, that our personal property taxes will not be raised? The county will not go seeking other streams of revenue to pay for this additional. Can we put it in some type of documentation to where, hey, if we don't generate it from the sales tax, then people's salaries going to have to be cut. We'll have to make some other harsh decisions to pay for this.
I don't think it's possible to put that kind of restrictive language. We're going to be required to pay our debt as we will. I feel like we have been very conservative in our projections of our revenue collection. I feel very comfortable that what we're projecting, that it will not require property taxes in the future to pay for that.
Well, what happens if
we,
it does?
We can play what-if combinations, but if
you need to have safeguards there. That's what I'm saying.
I feel like we do have safeguards.
Okay.
We've got
All right.
fund balance reserves, but if you're talking about some kind of a catastrophic kind of collapse,
or economic collapse,
then yes, property taxes would have to be used at that point in time. But I could say in our 20 years history of our putting our financial documents together, we've never had that happen where we've had to go into the property tax to pay for a debt that we weren't projecting.
Okay, and overall, sounds like a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions from the board?
Just want to commend Dan for putting this plan together and finding a way to fund it, and thinking about the long-term viability of Currituck County and its economic growth.
I'd like to commend our commissioners' representative on the COA board for convincing them to bring this project over here to us.
Mr. Chairman, one thing we have not touched on that I think is important in this discussion is with this facility operational, it opens opportunities for people doing that type of work to locate their businesses in Currituck County,
Right.
which will increase our tax base.
And
And we've
that-
already had some people make inquiry. I
Right, and
understand.
that, as I said, was exactly the point, that we've got to increase the tax base continually to keep the taxes low. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I think a great deal of thanks should go to Mr. Roger Lamberson, the chairman of the COA board. He was the one who put these parties together. I was chair at the time, put us together and got us moving forward. Mr. O'Neill, myself, Mr. Lamberson, county manager, and 2 or 3 others on the COA board met one day, and that was the beginning, I guess.
Okay. No further discussion. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
You need to close the public hearing.
Okay, close the public hearing. Can
I
have a
move
motion?
we adopt the resolution as
Second.
presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Thank you.
Moving on, administrative reports. First one, meteorologist Bill Samler. Y'all need a break?
Go, let's
Okay.
go.
Meteorologist Bill Samler, presentation on storm ready community.
We're missing one. C, public hearing and action.
That's what
That's
you
what we
just
just
voted
did.
on.
We just did.
We skipped B. We took that out.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
all
I
right.
thought, okay.
Mr. Samler?
Yes, good evening. Chairman Rohr, Vice Chairman Gilbert, the rest of the members of the Board of Commissioners. I come as a member or employee of the National Weather Service. My name is Bill Samler. I'm the warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service office in Wakefield, Virginia, which serves the 9 northeasternmost counties in northeast North Carolina. This evening, I've come to present an award to the county. It is a recognition of the county achieving storm ready status. If you're not familiar with the Storm Ready program, it began in 1999 as a means of acknowledging or recognizing communities whose emergency preparedness, emergency management has gone above and beyond in terms of their ability to not only receive National Weather Service information, monitor conditions, provide that information out to first responders and the public, but also to do other things necessary to prepare their community for a wide variety of potential natural hazards. And I want to take this opportunity to recognize Mary Beth Nunes and Rebecca Christenberry, who are the emergency management folks here in the county, and reward them with this recognition. I have 2 things tonight. One is a certificate recognizing Currituck County as a storm-ready community effective January 17th of 2012. The recognition is a 3-year recognition with a renewal period after that. And as a second part of that recognition, The county receives 2 road signs. If you've come in on into North Carolina from Route 17 from Chesapeake, you'll see that Camden County and Pasquotank County are already storm ready. So you join Camden and Pasquotank counties as storm ready, as well as the 4 major cities to your north, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, and Portsmouth, are all storm ready. So you now join a cadre of over 1,800 counties, cities, universities, large military installations as storm ready, and I congratulate Mary Beth and Rebecca and you all as a county as achieving storm ready status. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good job.
Great. Mary Beth, did you want to say anything? You did a nice presentation to Rotary one day about the storm readiness.
Thank you. This is, I wasn't really ready to say anything today, but I thank Bill. He put in a whole lot of time coming down. I'll tell you, he went to, we did some spot inspections at the schools to make sure that they had their weather radios, and everybody had them where they should be and working. And I really appreciate all the time that you spent with us working on this.
It's my pleasure. You did all the hard work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, item B, discussion on occupancy tax legislation.
Mr. Chairman, I was asked by the board to present to you, I guess, a refresher on occupancy tax, what it is and how it might be used. This comes from a presentation that's been given to the board before, but although we've had occupancy tax here in the county since about the mid-1980s and been utilizing it for a number of public purposes, there seems to be a misunderstanding from some in the general public as to how occupancy tax may be utilized. And so we hope to maybe help dispel some of the myth that has arisen around occupancy tax and its use. First of all, the occupancy tax is authorized through a local enabling legislation from the General Assembly. Of course, counties have only those powers and authorities granted to it by the General Assembly. And so in order to implement an occupancy tax, it was necessary for the county to receive the authority to levy it from the General Assembly, which first occurred, as I said a moment ago, back in the mid-1980s. Since that time, many counties and cities throughout North Carolina have also sought and received the same legislative authorization to help add to their tax base. Originally, there was a 3% occupancy tax that was authorized to the county, and that's been increased over the years by additional legislation granted by the General Assembly with a 1% addition and a 2% addition. Next slide. How can those portions or percentages of occupancy tax be used? Well, the original 3% occupancy tax may be used only for tourism-related expenditures, and we'll get to that definition in just a moment, which does appear in the enabling acts granted to the county by the General Assembly. The additional 1% requires that 2/3 of it be used to promote travel and tourism. Again, that definition will be discussed in just a moment. And 1/3 for tourism-related expenditures. And then lastly, the additional 2% that was most recently added to the county's authority requires 2/3 of that portion to be used to promote travel and tourism, and 1/3 for tourism-related expenditures. Now, this is where there seems to be some confusion as to, first of all, how do we determine what is tourism-related expenditure, and how may that portion of the occupancy tax be utilized? Well, first of all, it's important to look at the highlighted word judgment. The enabling legislation from the General Assembly provides that in Currituck County, expenditures for tourism-related expenditures are those expenditures that in the judgment of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners are designed, and we'll get to the remainder of the definition here in a moment. But it's important to concentrate on judgment. The board has been granted by the General Assembly broad discretion on how you determine what is a tourism-related expenditure and how those monies from that portion of the occupancy tax may be utilized. Now, going on through the definition, in the judgment of the Board of Commissioners, the expenditures are designed to increase the use of lodging facilities, meeting facilities, recreational facilities, and convention facilities in a county. It's again not only broad discretion on how you might utilize the money, but fairly broad language as to what the expenditures may be utilized. Again, to increase the use of these type of facilities within the county by attracting tourists or business travelers to the county. Now, that's an important aspect of the definition as well, because so often people seem to think that occupancy tax is restricted or only may be utilized for tourist-related expenditures or to only attract tourists. But as you see, it's also to attract business travelers, which is an important aspect of this occupancy tax and its use. For example, we have presented by the county manager at meetings, some meetings ago with regard to the Maple Community Park and the grand vision there and the utilization of occupancy tax to begin the implementation of that vision. Well, what is the vision? As the county manager has presented to this board and the plan that this board has adopted, that vision is to attract or increase the use of certainly recreational facilities, by the nice facility that's there now and being utilized by a good number of people within and without the county, we're told, but also to enhance the opportunity through further development of that particular piece of property for lodging facilities, meeting facilities, and hopefully creating the environment for convention facilities of some type within that part of the county. But again, that was properly determined in the judgment of this Board of Commissioners that occupancy tax expenditure for the community center as a starting place would initiate and be a launching piece for the increased use of these types of facilities within the county, and secondly, again, to attract not only tourists, but in addition to attempt to attract the business traveler within the county. And we move to the next definition as to promote travel and tourism. That's the remaining portion of the tax, which is utilized to a great extent, obviously, by our tourism department that markets through their many activities Currituck County as a place for vacation and recreation. But again, as you see from the definition and the highlighted language, it is not only occupancy tax used to promote travel and tourism to attract tourists, but again, we see the language or business travelers to the area. So again, we have a second portion of the tax, which is not just for tourism. It is also appropriate, proper, and intended to be utilized to help enhance the attractiveness of Currituck County to the business traveler. Now, the other myth that seems to arise is that this tax may only be used, and it's only appropriate to use it on the beach, because that's where the tourists are. Well, as we've gone through the definition, we see the tax purpose is not only for attraction of tourists, but also for the business traveler. And secondly, as we've seen in the definitions, it is for use of the tax within a county, or as here in the last part of the highlighted portion of this definition, the area. It is not geographically limited in any way or restricted in any way as to how or where occupancy tax may be expended in order to meet the purposes set forth in this legislation for its use. And I think that's the last slide. But again, attempting to cover just very quickly how occupancy tax may be utilized and the broad discretion granted to this Board of Commissioners as to make a determination within the definitions as to how the occupancy tax may be utilized and where it may be utilized to enhance the attractiveness of the county, not only to tourists, but also to the business traveler. And I'll be glad to answer any questions or discuss any other aspect of the occupancy tax that the board might like to discuss.
I'd like to ask, what % actually is spent on the Outer Banks traditionally?
Last year, on the,
Rough figure.
last year in the budget, doing some rough figuring on how much is providing services directly out of banks, it was approximately 80% of the occupancy tax.
And that's the tourism-related expenditures, and those include public safety and...
It was the entire occupancy tax.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. McCree.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Item C, presentation on state building code, change of use. Assume that would be Mr. Noon.
Good evening. Tough act to follow. I'm gonna bore you guys really. I'm here to admit to you, I'm a Yankee. Miss Snowden's leaving, so I'm safe. Born and raised in Philadelphia. I'm gonna apologize to Miss Gilbert right now because I'm gonna use the term "use guys," and it's not to offend anybody, but it's
Well, at least you came to your senses and moved down here.
yeah, yes, I did. It was a great place to raise kids. We're going to get into the use classifications of commercial buildings. What I'm going to show you right now is a video on the Rhode Island nightclub fire. Trying to expand it. Some of the things we need to realize with this video, basically, the building was built in 1946. They've gone through some changes, different uses from a restaurant to a nightclub to other things. On this particular night, there was a band playing, and this video was shot because of a fire in Chicago a week before around. And they were just doing a thing on nightclubs, and it just so happens that the construction in this building at the time was wood and very combustible, and somebody decided to put styrofoam around the stage area to keep the sound inside the building. Well, then somebody decided to put pyrotechnics in it. And as you can see, when they lit the pyrotechnics off, they lit the styrofoam off, and we have a problem. One good thing about this video that you're watching is, compared to the other one that you've seen, it has a time frame in it, and it's going to show you some things, how long it took, and it's very quick how things move along in this fire. So if we can watch it and just take in the things that are going on. As you can hear, smoke alarms are going off, the fire alarms and stuff like that, and people are trying to get out now. They realize that it's not part of the show.
Is this the Great White Concert?
Yes. It happened in 2003 or 2004.
How many people died in that fire?
We had 100 people die in it, over 200 casualties. They estimated there was about 440 people in the building. There was 4 exits. The one main exit, which everybody seems to be going to, one in the kitchen, one by the stage, unfortunately, and there was one back by the bar. And most people got out of this building through windows where the pool tables were and other areas. As you can see, that's where most people were getting out by the pool tables right there now. And as we get back around here, we're going to stop this in a few seconds because we don't want to continue with the rest of the video. But you can see how people have got caught in the door, and we have a serious problem because they can't get out of the building. And I'm going to have Ben stop it right there. Some of the things, like I said, that went into the contributing factor was having pyrotechnics in a wood frame building with the interior finishes, which you wouldn't have in a building now unless somebody did it after the building inspections were done. And typically the fire marshal would catch that on his fire inspections because he would notice something like that was a serious issue to life safety. What we're going to go on to here is, okay, we're going to state building code. What I'm going to say right there is I'm going to read something to you, one of the first things in the code. The intent of the code, the purpose of this code is to establish the minimum requirements to safeguard the public health, safety, and general welfare through structural strength, means of egress, which means getting out of a building, facilities, stability, sanitation, adequate light and ventilation, energy conservation, and safety to life and property from fire and other hazards attributed to built environment, and to provide safety to firefighters and emergency responders during emergency operations. That's the intent of the code. What is the code? It's the absolute minimum code. What does it mean? It's the least safe, least strong, least energy efficient building allowed by law. It is the minimum. It is, like I like to say, it's the least you can get away with to build. This is the building code. It's a Yugo. In the 80s, they build them. Some people bought them. I think they were $3,000 or $4,000. I don't see too many of them on the road these days. But that is the bare minimum. Met all the safety features for the highways, and but that's it. Fortunately, most of the people, our contractors, even the residential I deal with, we build good things. But you can build something like this and still have bad components, just like recalls on automobiles. Take that as a building. If you've got something wrong with your egress component in a building, or you're missing a life safety feature, it can look great on the outside, but it can be bad on the inside. Okay, we're going to move right on. Get into use classifications. There's 10 use classifications in buildings. When everybody thinks of a business, and I know you go in the dollar store and you say, well, it's a business, but really it's a mercantile occupancy. And as you can see, there's 10 of them here, and they're listed out. Assembly, right all the way down through. And in which each classification is there's a subcategory. You can have different classifications, like an assembly. You can have A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. And as I go on, I'm going to show you, I gave you a couple to look at. Here we have an A1. It tells you, I'm not going to read them all to you, but it tells you what basically an A1 occupancy is. A2, which is more familiar around here, is restaurants and stuff like that. A3 moves into your churches, places more, little bigger areas. A4, sporting events, and then the outside one is A5. This is our business group. Basically, business, when you think of business, you think of a real estate office, doctor's office, barber shop, such along those lines. As you can see, there's more listed there. When we go into the building code, we apply, when we see what the building's going to be, what it wants to be, and the designer designs, that's what we apply. This is a table, and now we're going to get into, as building inspectors, we do not design buildings. We don't tell design professionals how to design their buildings. They design them. What we basically come during the design phase, when they bring plans to us, kind of like a math teacher or accountant. We look at their building summary, which is an Appendix B, and it tells us details about that building. It tells us what it's going to be made out of, the type of construction, how big it's going to be. And what we do is go through that building, and we decide and look and use the code to say to that designer, okay, you're meeting everything. It's a checks and balance system. And just like algebra, he start off one formula, we take that formula to the end, and when we get to the end is the sum, and it equals the building. So in that phase, we turn the building loose. Then when we get out into the field, we become a referee, in a sense, because we have the rule book. Now we're the referee between the designer and the contractor. Now I'll give you an instance, and the subs. Give you an instance, a plumber. His plans show a 4-inch main drain line in a bathroom. Well, he's changed it to 3-inch. And he says to me, it meets the code. I said, you're exactly right, it does meet the code. You can have that. The problem is the designer wants a 4-inch line. Why? Maybe we're doing a Bush's Bean factory, and their taste testing room is that bathroom group, and they get a little more business than the rest of the business. He wants a bigger drain. He's figured out, he's either had problems in the past, or he's looking at the future, that this building may get bigger, and he wants a bigger drain line. That plumber don't get to say that. The designer gets to say that. So often what I say to them is, you need to go back to the designer, the engineer, and talk to him. He may be fine with that change, but I don't get to make that call, and you don't. It's his building. He's got the license. He's designed it. So once we get that, sometimes they change it, sometimes they say no. So I just want to get that to you. This table here basically tells us the occupancy groups on the left. Then it tells us the types of construction for what you have. You have type 1 through 5. Type 1 is a building made out of non-combustible materials. It's the safest building. And type 5 being your least safe. It's wood. It's all made of combustibles. It's your wood frame buildings and such. In this table, you'll see there's a group A and group B. What it does is categories. A B building is unprotected. An A building is what they call a protected building. And if you think of a skeleton, that's what they're protecting. They're protecting the skeleton of the building by making it fire rated, whether it be by protecting the steel girders, whatever, the wood frame. So that's what gives you this different table size when you go to these sizes. For our instance, I got some examples of business and then an A3, and you'll see that. But if we look across at the business section right there, and you go across to a Type 5 building, you're looking at it can be 2 stories, 9,000 square feet. That's a wood frame structure, unprotected. This is the table I was telling about when you got A and B protections. This table here tells you, in order to get that building to be bigger by protecting it, the structural components you need to protect. And this goes through there and does that.
Can we get a copy of this?
The presentation? Yeah. Sure. This table here. Everybody says, well, how do you figure occupancy in a building? Well, first of all, you got to know what the occupancy is. We go into this table, and sometimes you get an occupancy, you won't see, maybe find it listed here. So you got to use your judgment. What is it the closest thing to? What's it relate to? But as you can see in here, a business occupancy is 100 gross. Gross is paint to paint. Net is the building itself, but you take out elements like hallways, bathrooms, and machine rooms, so it makes the buildings, the square footage smaller. But this basically dictates by square footage how many people you can have in a building, and that's one of the elements that we deal with too when looking at it. This here basically allows us, say if we had a building and an owner said, well, I want to get more people in here. Well, we can do that. We can take that table and forget that table. Say if it had 100 per square person for business, we can go in here and apply a greater occupancy load, but that don't stop us from telling them, well, you're going to need more exits. You're going to need to do more things to meet the code. As long as you're meeting the intent, and again, it's life safety. You're trying to get people out of a building in time before things happen, and that allows that. Here's an example. This is a business occupancy, Type 5 construction. Now, this is worst case scenarios. There's things, the building code's a domino effect. We can do different things. This building can get increases for sprinklers. It can get increases for open space around the building. But we're going to pretend that it's worst case scenario. This building's a 70 by 70 building. It's 4,900 square feet. Taking the table and doing a business occupancy, we know that that building can be 9,000 square feet. So we're safe here. That building's good. We take the occupant load. Like I stated before, we have a business occupancy 100 square feet. We divide that in there. We come up to 49 people is how many people we can put in this building safely with one exit. And that's all we need. Now you think about it, 49 people and a door can swing in. 49 people in a room. And if something goes wrong, we're all heading for that door. Now if we got a George Costanza in here, if anybody's good with Seinfeld, we'll pick on Ike. But Ike beats us to the door, and he don't get that door open for some reason, and then we all start piling up like dominoes behind him. He can't pull that door open. 49 people is a lot of people in a room, but they're counting on the first person they're getting there and open the door. But that's a lot of people. You need to think about things like that. This second example I want to show you, we take that same building, and that was a real estate office, I believe I said. Yes, real estate office. They were there for 5 years. They closed up shop. The owner of the building, he finds a new tenant, or they sell the building. They want to make it into an arcade or a gaming thing. What you're looking at now is you got the same building. Now we're going to take and apply the code to it. When we apply the code to it, we still got the same size building. But now when we do this, the square footage in the building is dropped to 6,000 for an assembly versus the 9,000 that was in the business. The building's still legal right now. But the occupant load for the building, when we divide that by that 11 square feet, or 11 square foot net, we can take out the bathrooms. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to take out 128 square feet because it's net. You see, we can put 434 people in that building as an assembly occupancy. Right then and there, that triggers a whole new thing. We need 2 exits. We need sprinklers in the building. We need more bathrooms. You're going to put 400 people in a building. There's only 2 bathrooms, a male and female. It don't work. It just triggers that domino effect that I'm talking about. And most business owners or people that own a building like this, they're looking to get a tenant in there. They really not care because to their mind it's a business. We're just going about our daily thing. This is basically a part of the building code that tells you when you need sprinklers, and item number 2 tells you when you have 300 more people in the building, you got to sprinkle the building. They give some exceptions for churches. They're a little more lenient with churches because They look at, it's one day a week, maybe somebody's in that building.
Could you back up that slide one time? 12,000 square feet. Okay, yeah. All right, this is for commercial.
Yes.
How does that play into residential?
Right now, residential sprinklers, it plays in, okay, you talking commercial, there's commercial residential and there's single-family dwellings.
Well, that's an argument. We have homes that are being built on our Outer Banks that are large volume homes, 22, 23, 24 bedrooms.
Mini hotels.
And there's no requirement for sprinkler systems, and from what I understand, the state has said there's not.
If it is listed as a single-family dwelling, not for commercial use, not townhouses, not townhouses, condominiums and such, or hotels, it is a single-family dwelling. And it can be built to the single-family dwelling code. Now, I can tell you, the International Building Code is trying to go to residential sprinklers, a requirement, but it's being fought. I mean, California's a big player now. I mean, if you type it in, they got a presentation out there that shows you they had military housings where the same units, they put the same furniture in a bedroom. They show you one without sprinklers, one with sprinklers, how fast it puts the fire out and does what it's got to do.
Okay, the definition of residential versus commercial. If the homes are being rented, what's the state stance on that?
They still look at it was built a single-family dwelling.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, they still look at. They don't look at it as being a Motel 8.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand your concerns, and that which triggered this residential fire sprinkler push in Carolina was the fire that the college kids had down in Topsail. I'm not real sure, but it was one of we had all those college kids that were killed in that. So they're looking into it, and water issues are a problem. How do you get water to certain things, and of course, economic times and money. That's a biggie.
Just curious, from the state standpoint.
This is a sample of a building with mixed uses. Right here you have a mercantile use. We could have this as I'm going to try to think of I had something in mind, I forgot all about it, but a paint store. In the front they're selling paint, and maybe in the back they're making paint, and they store it over on the other side. You can have different uses in a building. You just don't get one use. But what happens is, what we look at is, you take the most stringent occupancy and you apply that to the whole building. And in this case, mercantile would be your most strict, depending on the factory use. If it was an F2, because they're manufacturing something more volatile, that's more flammable, then the factory occupancy may apply, and you would apply that to the whole building. Again, depending on this building and what you're putting in and what you're doing, depends on the occupancy, and then you could have firewall or fire partitions, firewalls to separate the storage, to do different things to the building. And like I said, you want to build to the most restricted occupancy. Fire inspections. One of the things that's kind of hard for us to keep on these businesses, as you can see this by this chart, this is basically our fire marshal's duty to go out and do his inspections. As you can see, we don't have too many hazardous. We don't have any high-rise buildings. The assemblies we have fall mainly into the last category you're going to see. The public schools, we go into every 6 months. But the assembly occupancies, an occupancy load less than 100, businesses, mercantile, storage, and that's 3 years. So within three years, somebody can move in that. You can have different businesses or different occupancies go into business before even the fire marshal gets to see them. So that's can be a real issue as far as, like I said, when they get them in there, it could be an illegal occupancy, and by the time he gets to tell them it's legal, either we could have a problem or they're out there and somebody else is in there. So it's hard to monitor right now.
Bill, can I touch on that in
Sure.
real-life examples? First of all, the state requires the fire marshal to make these inspections, correct?
This is correct.
So by general statute, he's just not riding by and saying, oh, I think I'll go bother somebody. He has to go and by general statutes, do a fire inspection.
Yes.
Real-life examples. Sometimes when people come in and they want to build, we'll say, a little strip mall of 4, call them condominium units, whatever you want to call them. When they come to build those, they build those for the least restrictive type of occupancies, correct?
Well,
A lot of times.
most of the time, because it comes down to money.
And yeah, and then what happens is they build it for like office space or whatever, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to put a retail in there, which is a different use as allowed per the fire code. So they go in there, they open up their business, they're running and thriving, and then when the fire marshal comes and makes his once every 3 year or 2 year or 1 year inspection, he finds out that per the fire code, the use is different than what the original building was built for.
Exactly.
And that's when my phone starts ringing saying, have you guys lost your mind? I've been here for 2 years, and now your fire marshal has come in here, and he's trying to shut me down. I can't do this, this, or this. But the fact of the matter is for time, elements, money, or whatever, we build it to the least restrictive, and then we allow a more restrictive use in there. And then when it gets caught, that's when the stuff hits the fan.
Yes.
And then we get the phone calls, but it's being dictated by the state, not the county.
Yes, it's not dictated by the county. As you can see, the building code shows you the different uses and dictates. It's not just the fire code. It's an illegal building by the building code. Those examples that I showed you, I'm going to back up. This is the same building. It's a business. You know, that could be a strip mall, all businesses. And all you got to do is, you had 4 or 5 of those, barbershop and all that. You go along, the first thing you do is stick an assembly in there. You just changed the use of the building. You just made you created a hazard to life because you've put something in a building that shouldn't be there. Now, I'm not saying all of them are like that, because depending on the size and stuff like that, you can make it work. May be able to put up a fire partition and stuff like that. What we need people to realize, and what we need owners and people starting new businesses, and to realize that this is, you know, a problem, and they need to come talk to us. They need to pick up the phone before they get in there, and the business owner needs to call us and say, I own this building, but I got a tenant that wants to get into it. You know, I don't remember what the building was bought. I bought it 5 years ago off of somebody. We can look at the records and see that it was built all to business occupancy and say, okay, you can't do that right now, but to get that tenant in there, you might need to do A, B, and C, and it might cost you a little bit. Now, is that worth you having that tenant, or, you know, or maybe going on to somebody else, or maybe that tenant finding a building that's going to work for them?
But he's out in the real world. He's got a vacant space he's got to rent so he can pay his bills and feed his family.
Mm-hmm.
So he's hoping maybe he can slide by, and then unfortunately sometimes they get caught up in it, and a lot of times it's innocent.
Yeah,
people
it
just
is.
don't know, and there's got to be a way that when people are submitting plans for a building, that they understand that if you're building it for the least restrictive use per the state building codes, and then you change it, that you may have saved yourself, you know, some money when you were building it, but when it comes back, it's going to bite you in the butt.
Yes, hopefully through education that we're doing. Hopefully people are watching this tonight and they're picking up a little bit, some of the owners and some future people that are looking to do those things. Yeah, it's a monster, because I hate those calls too, you know, because you got to deal with people and explain to them that it's a bad situation. But here it comes down to the point. You got a designer and an owner. When they first sit down, the owner goes to the design professional, and he says, I want to build a building to do this, strip mall. And the designer builds it, and he says, well, what do you plan to do with it? Well, I'm going to rent my units out to businesses. Well, the designer, he builds it that way. And he may build it to a restrictive thing, thinking that maybe they're going to do that, but when he shows it to that owner and says, the price tag of this building's $2 million, whoa, I can't afford that. Well, okay, then we need to go back and do this. And then he designs it out of wood or whatever to get the price down and do it. And then it restricts that. So that's where the problem comes in, because everything's about money. So when they do build it a least restrictive occupancy, and they run into these situations, this is what we run into that has the fire marshal, and that gets your phone ringing, and you guys get calling us, but it's a state building code. It's not regulated by you. You know, you guys don't get to make that decision. I get to enforce it because I raised my hand and swore on a Bible that I would enforce it to the best of my ability. what I can tell you is when somebody has actually come to me, and I said this once before, I had one owner of a building before he built it came to me, and I asked him, I said, what are you going to do with your building? What do you plan to do? Well, I want to do this. I said, are you ever going to plan to put a church in there? Are you going to ever plan to have this and that? Well, I might. I said, why don't you build to the most restrictive? Do what you can, and then if you build to the most restrictive, you can stick the smaller occupancy groups in there. And as you're going to see this is what that tells you. This is Chapter 34, a change of occupancy. And in here, you're going to see it says that you shouldn't change the use of the building within even like an A1 to an A2 or stuff like that. Again, if I build a building to an A3 and I want to put a business in it later, and people come to me with that and they say they've had a restaurant and they want to turn into a real estate office, all I need is the floor plan. Unless they're putting up some walls and going to affect the egress with doors and block it or something like that, it's pretty much a good thing. I'm like, okay, your business, go. See you later. But change that around. You want to flip it around from a business to an A3 or an A2, turn into a restaurant, putting more people in a building that wasn't designed to hold them people. That's where you got the problem. And one of the ways to fix it in older buildings, existing buildings, is through Chapter 34. And Chapter 34 basically takes that old building, and again, a regular layman is not going to be able to do this because there's a punch list there, and what happens is a design professional looks at the building, and he goes through this point system, and he grades the building for its safety, for this new use. And he sits there and picks it out, and it's got to meet a certain point total for that building to be safe. And again, they might have to do things. They might have to add egress lighting, add extra exits and stuff like that to get the building in conformance. And once he goes through that checklist and provides it to us, and they're going to do those changes to the building, then we can let them in there because we have that determination. When it says the building official is allowed for that purpose to do that. And it's what we're looking to do with a lot of them right now is with the internet sweepstakes things, there's some of them that are going through this change. But they put an interpretation out, love DOI, to throw us off on some of that stuff. The solutions. It's to educate property owners, realtors, and new business and tenants. Just what I've been saying. If you're going to build a building, you're out there, and you're thinking, I'm just going to stick real estate office, doctor's office, and barbershops, go ahead, build your building and stick to that, and you'll be fine. Keep your building there. If not, you want to build your building to the most restrictive occupancy you ever think you want to stick in there, because all the other ones aren't going to matter. You're going to be able to put them in, again, because the building's going to be more safe. The use of Chapter 34, and fortunately city and towns get to use a privilege license, which is a nice tool to stop a business from getting into a place before that kind of stuff happens and your phone starts ringing. The county, I don't know what we're going to do as far as something with that. That's more legal stuff, I guess. One thing that I need to mention that hopefully people will listen, when people do additions to a commercial building, say if somebody did want to get into a building, they want to add something onto it, it's an older building. There's a thing called disproportionality with the ADA. And if they're going to do a $100,000 renovation to a building, and that building don't meet handicap accessibility, what they're supposed to do is take up to 20% of that cost of that renovation and make the building more ADA compliant or bring it into standard. So it don't start by putting bathrooms in, because if you can't get in the front door, it don't do no good. It starts in the parking lot. So that out of that $100,000, you're looking at applying that. Once you hit that threshold, if you have to put a parking spot in and put a ramp in, but you don't need to exceed that. Once you hit that threshold, you stop. And then the next time you do something to your building, you pick it up again with that renovation, and you start from the front door to the bathrooms and other things. But they need to know that out there, because a lot of times we get plans for renovations to commercial buildings that have been existing, and then we say to them, hey, what about ADA? You got to bring your building up because you're missing something. Your front rails ain't right. Your ramp was built 30 years ago. It's an Evel Knievel ramp. We need to make those changes. So people need to be educated on stuff. We're trying. We need the community to believe in us. We need you to believe in our department, that we're out there trying to do people right. We ain't got no spinning wheel. The fire marshal ain't got a wheel. He spins in his office and says, I'm going to border station today. That ain't how we are. We're trying to make good things. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say thank you, Bill. If the people and the builders are looking at this and business owners and have listened to this dry and boring presentation. I thought you did an excellent job, and I've heard this twice.
It's about as much fun watching paint dry, I can tell you that.
Well, I think one of the key points you made in there is that you're not out looking for problems. You're really trying to find solutions. But sometimes you don't find out about the situations till after the fact, and that's what caused the problem. We have no way of knowing when somebody makes a change of use until long after the fact.
We take no pleasure in telling people they got to take things apart. I mean, you talk to any of the inspectors, that ain't what we're after. We're after compliance and safety. We want people to. My wife works for emergency management. When her phone goes off and it's a fire and it's a house that I've been in and done inspections, I can tell you it hits home. I mean, there was a drowning on Bell's Island. It was a pool. I did the pool inspection the week before that, but luckily it was out in the Sound. Not that luckily somebody got hurt, but but that plays on you, and you got to think about that stuff as an inspector. If you care about people, you think about that stuff. So we're
no truth to the rumor about the quota system then that y'all have to go get.
That quota system, reinspection fees. That $50 don't go in my pocket.
I think one of the most important things I want people to understand about this presentation tonight, this is a state mandated required obligation that the county has to carry out without any funding from the state of North Carolina to do such. These are county employees, and they get the brunt for people sitting in Raleigh trying to justify their jobs by writing asinine regulations.
Good point. That's absolutely right.
They are the minimum. I mean, when people call, they need to think about that. That is the minimum. And we didn't write them. They have a recourse. They can write to the building code council if they don't like that code. They can ask for amendment or get rid of it or reword it some other way. They have options. The building code council's online. They have a form they fill out, and then just like gentlemen, everybody sits around and they'll read it and they determine what that person's saying. If it holds any weight, they consider changing it, and if not, then they don't change it, and they send you back a thing telling you why they don't think to change it. So you have a recourse.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to old business. In fact, we're moving on to real old business. Consideration and action PB 00-15, Soundside Recycling. Renewal of a special use permit for a demolition landfill operation and a mulch-sale stockpile area located at 7565 Currituck Highway, tax map 110, parcel 3839, Poplar Branch Township. And you must be sworn in to address this particular matter. So, left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. This is a request for a special use permit, as you alluded to. The renewal came to you in December of 2011. At that point, Mr. Newbern had been issued his permit from the state, and he had secured the financial or the performance guarantee that was required. At that time, you gave Mr. Newbern a 2-month extension to move his operations east of the power line right-of-way. Staff did perform an inspection today, and to this point, the operations are not moved east of the right-of-way. They have installed the infrastructure that will allow the operations to be moved. Mr. Newbern provided documentation today from his engineer stating what the delay is, and I believe it's an inspection from NC Diener that must be performed before he can move the operations. I've placed a copy of this letter at your places. The letterhead is Richardson, Smith, Gardner, and Associates. If you want to take a look at that, that provides some context for what the situation Mr. Newbern's in at this point. He is here, of course, to answer questions and perhaps provide more background as to what his eventual course of action may be. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the history of the case or any planning or zoning issues or concerns you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Woody?
I have one. Mr. Woody, make sure I understand. Mr. Newbern asked for an extension waiting on to move on the other side of the power lines, but he's waiting on an engineering study.
My understanding is he's waiting on an inspection from NC Diener.
Okay.
But
he's been trying to get the process done all along.
As far as I know, yes, sir.
Mr. Newbern, you want to speak to the issue?
Yes, we've been working steadily on this ever since we got the financial assurance back in November, and we've put in the dump pad, and we're ready to use it. We're just waiting on an inspection, and we want to be back there more than you want me to be back there, because I have a nice concrete pad sitting back there waiting to be used, and I'm working in less than ideal conditions where I'm dumping now.
Any questions for Mr. Newbern?
I have one. Tracy, have they give you any indication of when that inspection may be coming for?
In the letter, when my engineer talked to them today, they said sometime this month they'll come do the inspection.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Woody, would it be appropriate to just bump this forward another 60 days to give him adequate time to get that inspection and start moving his materials?
Yes, sir.
That's what I would motion we do with this tonight.
Any other questions? Okay, not a hearing. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
60 days. Thank you. New business, consideration of ordinance amending section 10-128 of the Currituck Code of Ordinances. Mr. McCree.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In June of 2010, this board adopted section 10-128 of the Code of Ordinances to prohibit unattended property remaining on the beach after sunset or a certain hour of the day. As this ordinance was implemented and lived under, we made a determination that we had a couple of instances that was causing this ordinance to be complicated or complicating situations on the beach. First of all, we did not think to exempt from the ordinance lifeguard stands. So this ordinance amendment will exempt lifeguard stands, and so they don't have to be removed nightly from the beach. And secondly, we also learned that there was a conflict with the Unified Development Ordinance with regard to some services that are provided, particularly along with the plan unit development sections of Corolla, where there are at the beach clubs in particular services provided for visitors by renting umbrellas and chairs and tents and things of that nature. And of course, they have on the beach area boxes that they store this equipment in overnight. And so while our Unified Development Ordinance allows for these accessory structures or boxes accessory to a beach club, this ordinance that is provided for in the Code of Ordinances made those unlawful. So this ordinance amendment will correct that and make the Code of Ordinances consistent with the Unified Development Ordinance as well.
Have we overlooked any other special circumstances anybody can think of?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the amendment to section 10-128.
Can I ask a question first?
Get a second.
Second.
Okay.
Now you can ask a question.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can ask it now.
I want to make sure when people leave these tents or canopies or whatever, I call them funeral tents, whatever, on the beach, this will restrict them from leaving stuff out there overnight, that they leave for the week or whatever.
That's right. The ordinance adopted in June of 2010 already prohibited leaving that type of item on the beach.
Okay, but we
overnight. What we did was we made an exception to what was prohibited to allow for lifeguard stands and for accessory uses regulated by the Unified Development Ordinance, which will allow for these boxes to store this tents and chairs and things of that nature that are rented during the day.
This addresses the concerns specifically that the Currituck Club had.
I think it should address that concern. Corolla Light.
Yeah, I was going to the PUD.
Yes.
Okay.
Buck Island, Ocean Sands.
Ocean Sands, right.
Okay.
Further questions? Discussion? Okay, we've got a motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. New business. B, consideration action on contract for purchase and sale of real property with Diane S. Owens for property located 144 Gabbard Lane, Spot, North Carolina.
This is presented to you for your consideration, a contract for the acquisition of a approximately 1 acre parcel of property located as essentially an in-holding piece at the Rural Center down in Spot. The county has been in conversation with the property owner for probably a year, maybe more, with regard to the county's acquisition of this particular piece of property, which has a mobile, a manufactured home, I believe, on it, some sheds and some other debris that's around the property. Also, this property's location is such that it makes it difficult to get, I guess, the best use of the county's rural center property and the horse arena area. And so this would allow the county to be able to open that area up for better use, as well as to clean this area up as well that's currently adjacent to the county's rural center property. The price for the property is $112,000, has a tax value of $102,000, but the property owners have come off significantly of what they were wanting for the property about a year ago. The contract will propose for a closing to take place 30 days after the county's 30-day inspection period. I know an interest or concern was expressed by the board with regard to the ability to do a Phase 1 environmental survey of the property to make sure there are no environmental hazards, and that will give us time to do that. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McCree?
Do we have a copy of it for the?
It was included in your agenda package.
You say copy, you're looking for a plat?
Yeah, the plat.
The contract was included in your agenda package.
Oh, I know what the plat looks like. I was just thinking for the general public, so that they could see that it was an in-holding. We own the lots adjoining it on each side.
On 3 sides, we own the property, and 3 sides
we own the property.
Now, how's this being paid for?
We have options. We were going to look at either the land acquisition fund or possibly Oxy tax to pay for it. Both of them can handle the acquisition.
Other questions? Motion?
I make a motion to approve to go ahead with the purchase along with the guidelines of the environmental study. I guess it's 30 days.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By it. Item C, award bid for the Corolla Greenway Trail Extension Phase 2.
Mr. Chairman, I think a little bit over a year ago, the county received a Part F grant fund to build multi-purpose paths on the Outer Banks. Last year at this time, we put about a mile-plus path from the Whalehead Club up to the parking lot at the Estuarine Reserve. We did not spend all those funds, so we've been in the process of doing an additional about a mile. You see a graphic here on the screen showing you we're now bringing forward to you a project to extend up the path similar to what's out there from the parking lot at the Estuarine Reserve up through to where the cattle crossing is. There at the northern end, we would have a trailhead in there that would have bike racks and some trash cans and picnic table kind of amenities. And we're working with North Carolina Estuarine Reserve to actually create a footpath to the beach to create a destination where the pedestrian traffic and bicyclists can get over to the beach. That project has been designed. It was placed out for bids. You've got the bid packages in your agenda package. And tonight we're asking your approval to move forward with awarding a contract to RPC Contractor, the low bidder for the project, in the amount of $240,837. And I'll be happy to answer the questions you might have.
Any questions?
This will continue. I see where we're going with the last portion. When will we connect with the Corolla Light, Monterey Shores, and have ownership of those existing bike paths or easements that they were going to give us?
We have been working with Corolla Light first. I believe we went out and did some initial surveying with them, and the majority of their path, I feel, is in the DOT right-of-way.
Probably 99.5% of the paths in the DOT right-of-way. So there's no easement that's needed.
So there's no easement we need with Corolla Light. So we can go move forward with the connection. And so with this, I guess as you work north to south, this will get us from the ramp all the way down and through Corolla Light now with a contiguous path. I do believe when project is done, we will still have some Part F money residual left over, and we're looking at how to spend that. The Part F does require it to be contiguous, so we're looking for either a spur in the Corolla Village, or maybe going in and trying to look at connecting Corolla Light to Monterey Shores, and then we'd have a continuous path all the way down to Food Line. But
You have another application in for that money?
this is all the same application.
Same, but I
This
mean,
is-
will we be doing another?
It's still the original award
They keep
has
awarding.
residual money left
Okay.
over, and so we have not spent the entire first award, and it appears like we're going to be able to get at least 3 projects out of that.
Okay.
This one here being the second one, and we'll be able to bring to you a third project at determination of this one.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Board appointments. Agenda has planning board first, although I see it's backwards in the package. And
You've got at your tables a listing that I believe covers both appointments, and it'd be appropriate if the board is comfortable with that, making a motion that would actually cover all of it. The only appointment that would be left is Commissioner Etheridge. You still have an appointment to the planning board.
I will defer that till the next meeting.
okay, if everybody has a listing, look that over.
Mr. Chairman, for District 1, I would like to reappoint Jim Clark from Cox Island, mainland area there, and Lynn Wilson from the Outer Banks.
You just want to, so if you've got the listing, we just go by a vote on the list.
Are
Just
you-
make the changes.
Are you prepared to make your appointment?
Yes. Yeah, I'd already done that.
I move then we appoint the list as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Just a correction, I'm listed as District 1. Mr. Cooper, I'm assuming that's District, some not District 1.
2.
Okay, I know, I just want to make sure.
So the only one left is District 4,
District 4.
Commissioner Etheridge. Okay.
Okay, Economic Development Board. And Mr. Petrie, that's your appointment.
I think it's on here, C.A. Howard.
Oh, I see it down there, okay.
Make a motion, we approve.
Okay, well, we did that on the list then, all right.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't see that down at
That's
the
fine.
bottom of the list. All right, thank you. So that's already taken care of then, good. Okay, consent, let's see. You want to move the Register of Deeds up in front of consent agenda? I put it at the end down there, but that's after all the comments. Okay, move that from H up to D2.
Now, yeah.
And we'll discuss that in the resolution to set the salary for the Register of Deeds. And we've got a spreadsheet provided to us listing all of the salaries of the various counties. I went through and glanced at it briefly while Mr. Nunes was making his presentation. I see the minimum is Pamlico, which is at $33,000. Of course, it goes up into the hundreds. And
I was one who suggested taking this off and bring it to him because I did not know that anyone had taken and actually look at an average.
Right.
And from the average that was presented, I have no problem at all because as these were passed out to us, it would appear that, that is in the ballpark. I would ask this question, since we have, starting salary and et cetera, but how do people like the sheriff, do they get a step raise every year, every 2 years, where you have a minimum and a maximum? Or does that have to be voted on by?
For Currituck County, for the elected positions, the Register of Deeds and the Sheriff's Department, the Board of Commissioners would have to vote on increases. Now, I do believe they share in our longevity program, but an outright increase would be a required action by this Board of Commissioners for either one of those elected positions.
Before we vote on this, did anybody contact the current Register of Deeds and let her know this will not affect her?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay.
I had a question too, although this is I guess a arithmetical mean that you've generated. Do many of our starting salaries have odd numbers like this?
It is, let me be clear, the number we're presenting to you is not a mean across the list you gave. It was mentioned that perhaps we should take a look at what Pasquotank County was doing because they have a Register of Deeds, a relatively newly elected Register of Deeds that has just 1 year of service. So the number we put in here is the salary for that position at Pasquotank County to make it similar. I think it's if you look down the list we just provide you, it seems to be in the ballpark and probably is close to a mean, but I don't want you to think that that number represented the mean. What it actually represents is the actual salary in Pasco County at this time.
Wouldn't we start with like a minimum number, you know, you're going to get somebody in that if somebody comes in brand new, wouldn't your starting salary normally be at the bottom of the scale rather than the average of the surrounding scales?
Yes, but and again, our human resources, our elected officials do not go strictly onto our grade and step table. They go at a salary range that's appointed by the Board of Commissioners. So this position would just be the salary be set by the board.
Now, won't you tell me again now, the current Register of Deeds, you've talked to her and she realizes this does not affect her?
That is correct.
Okay.
And knowing your penchant for saving us money, I'm sure you have not been extravagant at all in the determination of this particular starting range.
Point 4 of the resolution specifically points that out.
Yeah.
But I did a quick count. I think this puts us halfway of the pack in North Carolina.
It looks like it on the schedule.
It does. It's close.
All right, well, you have the resolution.
Make a motion to accept the resolution.
You have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries? Let me go back.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries? Commissioners report. Let's start with Mr. Idlet today.
In the spirit of saving time.
Bless you, it's been a long meeting. Mr. Petrie.
I just want to encourage everybody that we have an election this year, county, national. If you're not registered, get out and vote. Register.
Madam Vice Chairman.
I just want to thank the Boy Scouts Troop 169 for inviting me to their meeting last week, and I enjoyed meeting with them, and I appreciate the public service that they are doing in the community involvement.
Mr. Martin.
Just like to remind all the business owners, operators, and the general public, the Business Expo, February the 25th, will be at the high school, and look forward to seeing all of you there.
Good. Mr. Etheridge.
Last Friday night, I attended a banquet in Raleigh dealing with high corn yields, and I got to tell the people how blessed we are in Currituck for our agricultural producers. Currituck was represented by more corn growers than any other county in the state of North Carolina this past year. It just shows how blessed we were last year.
Very good. Mr. O'Neill.
Just two quick things. In our state magazine, there's a interesting article in there about one of our own, Mr. Frank Carter, who used to be a guide, hunting guide, fishing guide from Coinjock. Of course, I grew up, and he used to call us Church's Island boys Scoggin Islanders. And it's a good article, and it's a little piece of our heritage and Americana, and I'd encourage everyone to get a copy of that and read it. And also, I'd like to give a big kudos out to Mr. Horn, who has just retired from the Pillmore Food Bank after, I forgot how many years, how many? I thought it was 40-some. But anyways, it was a tremendous amount of time that Pillmore Food Bank has served the folks in this area, and I just want to commend, of course, all the other food banks, but this one, Mr. Horn, has really taken this one over the years and done a wonderful job. And I think it'd probably be nice to send a letter to him from the chairman and the commissioners thanking him for all that service he's done.
I agree. And I was going to mention earlier with our appointments with the retiring folks from the various boards, too, that we usually send them a letter thanking them for their service in doing that. And I don't have anything related to business, but I would like to just thank everybody in the county for their kind thoughts and well wishes the past few weeks since the passing of my wife. Thank you. County Manager's report, please.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Well, we need to adjourn and then...
No.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we recess our meeting No,
It's
adjourn our
adjourned.
meeting as Currituck County Commissioners and reconvene as the Tourism Development Authority.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Adjourn from the regular meeting. Need a motion to open a meeting for a special meeting for Tourism Development Authority.
That was part of my motion.
Oh, you made the motion. Okay, and he did. All right, we got it. All right, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Scanlon, do the presentation for us.
Mr. Chairman, you have a budget amendment bringing forward to you tonight for Oxytax. The Tourism Department is asking for funds to be appropriated to put a security system in the Outer Banks Visitor Center.
In the amount of
Looking for it.
$5,135.
Yes, sir.
You're just moving money from one line to the other.
Yes, sir.
And it's probably a good idea to have a security system.
Move for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Second. Opposed?